Acclaimed Japanese film director Akira Kurosawa once said that while the story of a film gives it a skeleton, the camera gives it sight, and the actors give it heart, it is the audience that gives a film life. His colleague, American film director Michael Bay, once said something along the lines of make Megan Fox as shiny as you fucking can. Now, neither of those quotes are real, but what is real is that both directors have had multiple films featured in the Criterion Collection, a vast and ever-growing list of contemporary and classic films deemed important. Welcome one and all to Criterion Castaways, a show where we sail the seas of cinema until we find ourselves washed up on random shores. I'm the worst of your two hosts, Jacob Katz.
And I'm Godfuck.
What does it say on my royal crest, Admiral?
I hate pirates.
Off to an amazing start.
And I'm the best of your two hosts, Nick Fiore. They also call me Humble Nick.
Now, listener, if you already know our shtick or you just want to skip ahead to the movie picking and the discussion, you can skip ahead to this timestamp. 1542. And if you didn't hear anything just then, it means we need a better post-production process. Nick, we're here today, before we get into the meat of the episode, to answer three big questions. The first one being, who are we? The second one being, what is Criterion, for anyone that doesn't know? And the third is, what are we doing here? What is this show? What are we gonna do as we talk into a microphone? So, Nick, who are you?
My name is Nick Fiore. Some people might have known me by my handle on YouTube, Needless or Needless Nick. For the past, I guess, about half decade, I have worked on the internet usually as a YouTube editor or as a motion designer. I've worked for folks like FD Signifier or Jesse Gender, and along with that, I've always enjoyed discussing films, and now I'd like to do it with people who are actually listening, and hopefully that's you, viewer, listener. God damn it. Hi, Jacob.
Hi. I'm Jacob Katz. I have also been in the video production field for a while. I've done freelancing for about 10 to 12 years, but I've worked professionally in the commercial field for about 5 or so years now. Anything someone will pay me to do where I can point a camera at a thing and then open Premiere and get mad at it. I've done some music videos for bands that you might have heard of and probably haven't. Nothing More, From Ashes to New, The Who, not the one you're thinking of, but a Mongolian band that still rocks, but is spelled H-U instead of W.
Rocks harder.
King. Now, Nick, you and I have known each other for about 10 years now. We met freshman year in college.
Oh my God.
I know.
So old. And both of us being film and music and media nerds, we've always had a bunch of conversations and always been just like constantly swapping our very interesting opinions at each other. And now we have the opportunity to kind of spread it here. Spread it here.
We've every few years we've like reconnected and then just like talked for 5 hours at a time about mostly movies and games and like things we want to make, but at least on my side don't have the follow through to actually put together. And I think at this point, with the employment market being so cool and fun right now, we were like, well, it's about time. Let's talk at the internet for a little bit and actually work on something together, which I'm excited for.
I am also excited about it.
Sick. So anyway, so this is a podcast where we're going to talk about movies in the Criterion Collection. And for anyone that doesn't know what the Criterion Collection is, it is at like its heart a boutique Blu-ray label. They also have a streaming channel called the Criterion Channel, but I would say the most famous part of their business is restoring and releasing usually old films. They have done stuff like release, I think in the 80s they were releasing a lot of more popular films just because they were one of the studios that would put out like laser discs of Ghostbusters and stuff. But
oh shit, I like
they
this,
did,
when you were reading this, I had no idea that they had been around.
They've been around from my understanding around the mid 2000s, maybe a little bit before that. They started the collection proper, which every month or so they usually add a couple films to, and each film that they add is quite often a new restoration done by them or another similar society around the world and assigned a spine number, which is really just to say the order that Criterion has released things in. Quite often they'll do new art for the releases as well. They'll do some fun packaging things, but the Films also usually come with a booklet with essays, sometimes interviews with other contemporaries of whoever made the films, and they're generally held in very high regard, which means that they can also feel a little bit pretentious, I would say, especially if you don't know a lot about their mission and someone says, yo, let's go watch Salo. It's the most fucked up thing you'll ever fucking see.
Well, I think, just kind of jumping on that for a second, I think that's one of the things that's really interesting about the Criterion Collection, because I think there is a bit of I don't know, this has always been my vibe around it. I have a few of them. I've collected them mostly just through doing thrifting, but my relationship has always been like, there's sort of the little bit, I don't know, there is that film, I don't know, snob aspect to at least the
kind of film bro-y.
Yeah. It's a little film bro-y.
Not that there's anything wrong with something being film bro-y. I think that this is kind of an inherently...
No, I think there's something wrong.
It's like an inherently elevated thing just because, like, if you look at the Criterion Collection as an American person born in the 90s, there's, I think at this point, a little over 1,300 entries in there. And about 400 of those are American films. And most of those American films are from the 50s, 60s, and 70s. And so when you look at something like that and you think, okay, why isn't the best movie I've ever seen, Thor: The Dark World, good enough for the Criterion Collection? It can create this sense of separation, especially if you're talking to someone who's really into it and they're like, bro, you haven't seen Solaris by Tarkovsky? What are you even doing with your life? And that is one of the things that we want to kind of try and break down with the show and say, like, these are movies that are worth watching, yeah, but it's also something that you don't need to have a film history
seen
degree
by birthright or something.
Exactly.
I think instead of being like, oh, bro, you haven't seen that, it's like, oh shit, you haven't seen that. That's gonna be awesome. You get to watch that now. Like, that's like, or like to have the opportunity to watch that when you're an adult. I think there's so many movies that I wish I had seen when I was older or had the opportunity to see now with like fresh eyes or something. One of the big things I would love to do with this show is, especially with the guests and everybody, is like, I want to learn a lot more about all these different films, but I also want to be like very clear that none of these have to, I don't know, be life-changing, but if they are, I want it to be from just how many different types of films are out from the Criterion Collection. Because I think from talking to Jacob, as we're kind of creating the idea for this show or kind of working through it, it's like I was just looking at the list and I'm like, there are just such a diversity of choices that I think often get overlooked when, I mean, sometimes the Criterion Collection can be boiled down to the film bro movies, the idea of the Tarantinos or the Scorseses or something. Not to say those are bad films, but they're not always the films that we could all be directly relating to or experiencing.
It is funny that you mentioned Tarantino, because one of the things that I was feeling as I was reading a lot more about this and doing like the pre-production, I was like, why isn't Pulp Fiction in here? Why aren't these movies that I really dearly love in the collection, despite there being contemporary movies in there? Like Benjamin Button is in the Criterion Collection. Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio is in it.
Wait a minute.
What's up, bro?
He comes out an old man and then he ages backwards. I think it should be number one.
Funniest shit I've ever seen. But I think that is also a layer that kind of gets sometimes overlooked unless you're in the collector community or like on the Criterion subreddit, where every month it's like, why isn't this movie on there yet? Is that they are not a studio that's making movies. So a lot of times when they're releasing something, it's because they were fortunate enough to bid for the rights for it or ingrained enough in the film community to be allowed to put that together. Like WALL-E is in the Criterion Collection, which is an incredible movie, but it's pretty clear when you look at the special features and when you kind of dig into it a little bit that it's only in there because Andrew Stanton, who directed WALL-E, is a huge fan of the Criterion Collection and campaigned very hard for the movie to be in there. But at the same time, like, Disney doesn't necessarily want to lose the money from releasing their movies on their own, so they may not license movies to the Criterion Collection. Or there are other boutique Blu-ray labels out there like Vinegar Syndrome, Kino Lorber, Arrow, and a bunch of others that also want to preserve these movies. And that is, at the end of the day, it's all about media preservation. You don't want these things to get lost to time or only be available on some out-of-print release from 30 years ago. But there is more complexity to it than just, I wish Criterion would put Inglourious Bastards out. But it's considered like a mark of quality that something is in the Criterion Collection, to the point where things that aren't are sometimes viewed as just less worth your time. And I think that's a great time to talk about, what are we doing here? What is this show?
Well, what is this show?
Well, this show is Criterion Castaways, available at every major podcast provider we can figure out how to upload to. This is a show where we want to eventually watch the entire Criterion Collection. When we were looking through the existing Criterion podcasts out there, is that some of them will handpick their releases while others will go through in spine order. And when you handpick something, a lot of times you already have a bias about it. And when you go in spine order, it's going to take you a really long time to get to stuff that may be well worth your energy. So we think that choosing them randomly is a good way to keep the energy alive and show us things that maybe we haven't prepared for, but also give us the challenge of trying to relate any of those movies together. We also want to give space in every episode to talk about things outside of the Criterion Collection, outside of movies potentially. There is a gigantic world out there of culture, and it would be silly to lock ourselves down to just the releases that a company in New York thinks is important.
I don't know if you had this when you were younger, is like when I decided I wanted to be a filmmaker, one of those guys, I
pushes up glasses onto nose.
And I did. You can't see it, but you could hear it. But I do like just remember just sitting on my bed in my room, just watching just movies, kind of like just that's all I would do after I get home. Taking in one type of medium or creative work, you just kind of lose some of the luster, kind of the exploration otherwise. I mean, I don't know when he had exactly said this, but there's this the great game creator, Tim Schafer, who we will probably mention at different points because we're both obsessed with their games and him as a person. But one great piece of advice he always mentioned was just do anything but games. It's great to love them and to be a part of them and to make them, but go outside, go on a walk, read a book, learn a different language, like explore the world, and so that can feed back into all of those things.
At the end of each episode, we are going to use a randomizer to pick the next movies that we watch. If anyone wants to follow along, please go and watch those movies and discuss them with people in the comments on whatever social media handles we end up setting up, and just out in life in general. Yell at someone that you watched a movie because two guys on the internet told you to. If we're ready, we can figure out what our movies are going to be for this week. This week and this week alone, we're going to pick them, and then there's going to be a several day pause for us, but probably a few second pause for you. And then we're going to come back and talk about these movies.
As they say, I was an usher at a movie theater called B&B Theaters, and they've been saying the tagline that we had to say at the end of any interaction with any guest, even if it was a small interaction, we would say, enjoy the magic of the movies. So that's what we'll be saying here. This is the magic of the movies.
Excuse me, sir. The toilet's clogged. Hey, enjoy the magic of the movies.
Yeah, and then I would go clean that up and enjoy the mess he made for me.
There we go. So, Nick, you and I both have, at this point, like a bird's eye view of the collection. Is there anything that you're hoping is in this first randomization? Anything you're against watching? What's your feeling going into this big momentous occasion that 0 people right now are listening to?
Well, of course, I mean, we're the only 2 people listening to it now, but I am assuming we will hit the number 1 spot. I'm sorry to Joe Rogan that when we would take over, we will be the new problematic bad boys of Spotify,
the
YouTube,
bad boys of movie watching.
Yeah. Here are my thoughts about women and movies. I think actually, like in the spirit of me sharing my opinions about women, I did want to. I'm gonna
let you take that one more time just so it's something usable. I'm gonna specifically interrupt you, so you got to do that again.
Keep it in. No, keep it in. Keep it in. In the spirit of my opinions about women, that are totally non-problematic. No,
don't take it clean. Yeah. Do something else. The point of a second chance is not to do it again.
One of the things I actually was very funny that's on the Criterion Collection, but I am actually interested in rewatching just because of just how poorly it has aged, is Kevin Smith's Chasing Amy is a part of the Criterion Collection.
I am also interested in that.
I do enjoy Kevin Smith, and it is a bit of a problematic fave, but I have misgivings about it, so there's that.
There are a few little hidden things in there that I think are going to be interesting for us to get to eventually.
I concur.
Then I'll start up our randomizer and we'll see what our movies are for this week.
Ready, set, randomize.
Okay, so we have 3 movies totaling about 6 hours of duration for this week. One of them I think couldn't be more prescient. We have Make Way for Tomorrow from 1937. We have 1984 from 1984. And we have The Secret of the Grain from 2007. I know I've seen 1984 like a really long time ago, but Nick, have you seen or heard of either of the other two movies? Because I haven't.
I mean, and I, of course, I've read the book, but I had not even realized that there was a film that had come out at this specific time, this of the same name. But I had not heard of any of the other films, honestly. But I'm interested to engage with these mysterious films, especially the Grain one. I don't know. I think that one definitely piqued my interest.
Me too. So we're going to go watch those movies. You're going to hear a little bit of an audio transition, and then we're going to come back and talk about those. After that, we'll connect them together. We'll talk a little bit about whatever else we're experiencing that week, and then we'll choose whatever entries we're going to do in episode 2. So we'll see you in a couple seconds. Okay, Nick, it's been a week. We've watched these movies, and we have thoughts about them. That is the basis of the show.
I've thought about it. I have thoughts about what you just said and thoughts about these movies. I think we're in the right place, and I'm so excited to discuss these with you.
Me too. Real quick, before we get into these discussions, spoiler warning for all 3 movies that we're discussing. Blanket spoiler warning for every movie or thing that we might bring up. Yeah, just a heads up. If
spoilers for any like association these actors might have with each other, for any of the directors,
spoilers
just
for all
what the
culture.
Concept of what film is. Yes, exactly.
But our first movie that we watch is Make Way for Tomorrow, directed by Leo McCarey in 1937. Spine number 505. Nick, can you give me a quick overview of what this movie was about?
Yeah, Make Way for Tomorrow kind of follows 2 elderly parents basically finding themselves, they're about to lose their house, the banker's called, and their kids are kind of left with this situation of, we have to take the parents. And effectively they can't, at least together. It's very much a generational story. It's so much humor. I could feel the fact that this is both based on a novel. I'm not sure if whatever came first in this instance, but also then a play. And it just has... so many of these films of this era have this very like, we are in with them, and it even plays with that a little bit later on in the film as well.
The play was called The Years Are So Long, and the play was adapted from a book with the same name.
Okay, that's good context. Okay, and I can only imagine these are taken straight from them because they're so particular. Some of the way that these lines are delivered, or the little like turns of phrase that I just kind of adored. But I
felt the same way. I think one of my earliest notes as I was watching was like, you can tell that this was from the era of like still kind of getting used to talkies, where everything is very kind of cheating outwards to camera. It's blocked like a play. And the acting style was so particular. Yes. So expressions are heightened. Line deliveries are either very deliberate in how they're given or not given, or they're kind of full theater voice projecting to the back of the room. The 2 main characters are these parents who get separated when their house gets foreclosed on by the bank. The mom goes to live with her son, George. The dad goes to live with, I think Cora is the kid's name. They have 5 children. Yes, one of them lives in California. We never see her. Robert, Cora, Nellie, and George are the other 4.
Yeah.
I think what happens is like Nellie says that they have room to take in both parents, but she has to run it by her husband, Harvey, which as soon as she says it, you're like, no, that's never going to happen. So the parents end up getting separated.
These people have been together, like, I think they say like 50 years is always kind of the thing they come back to. And I think what do you feel about that? The premise as itself, because I almost felt like chills a little bit just thinking about like, oh, wow, that's kind of that is kind of just sad by itself. I don't know.
It is like a really tragic movie, and I think it deals so much with, it's a Depression era movie. It was made in 1937, which is
this is second administration of FDR, so all these things are going, but everyone's still continually out of work.
And on top of that, like it's also about generational stuff, because it's the 1930s, so it's 20 years removed from the First World War.
It really is just, I think it puts you in a place, because that really is seeing a totally different side of life.
And one of the things that popped up when I was like just doing some very preliminary research after the movie is that the director used the movie to pay tribute to his dad's generation, who his dad would have certainly fought in the Civil War if this guy who directed the movie.
Definitely then. Okay.
And his dad died a year before the movie came out.
Absolutely. I think it goes to, just kind of circling back to the beginning, it's sort of that opening line. That opening crawl, which I stood with for a while. I think I kind of I don't know, like the idea of the painful gap.
It starts off with this opening paragraph that, like you said, kind of summarizes that feeling, but then it ends off with, honor thy
With the-
father
yeah,
and
yeah.
thy mother.
But I think what's interesting, though, even though it is the Great Depression,
Mm-hmm.
I think in the same way that, like, I think the generation who saw the Civil War in a certain way too is that they took those responsibilities as like individuals.
Mhm.
And I think that's like, and I think we also see that throughout the movie is the parents taking those as individuals. Like the dad always wants to find the job for himself. They don't want to be burdens. It's scary, but I've definitely also been in family situations too where my family members have not. They think they have 6 months because that's what they're told from their
Right.
parents. Like in that like scene when they have all the kids together and the parents are just like, oh well, we have to leave Tuesday.
Yeah.
Because we just thought. Like, I mean, like almost in that American dream way, we'll find something.
There was so many just old things in here that struck
Yeah.
me how difficult it was to communicate and stay in touch. And
Yeah.
this might be me missing stuff, but one of the reasons why it's so difficult for the parents to be apart is because these children live 300 miles away from each other.
Yeah, well, I think it's I think it's brought up when he talks to, I think, Max Rubin.
Yeah.
Rubin's the shopkeeper.
They talk about how expensive it is to call each other. They talk about writing
Yeah.
each other, and it's like that would be a few days in between communicating at the quickest.
Yeah.
Or paying a lot of money, which I mean, back then a lot of money could be $1.50 for a phone call, especially during the Depression.
I mean, like it's already expensive to do anything, and I think, I mean, Lucy kind of, which I just love this actress, Ula Bondi. I mean, she kind of references the fact that like the call costs as much as a scarf. Like one like small conversation they had just now, like it was like I think like maybe took place for 5 seconds, like
Yeah.
maybe like a minute or something, and it's like, oh well, that's a piece of clothing. That's something that could have kept you warm.
Going off of that in terms of money, I think one of the like big kind of juxtapositions in this movie is that all of these people seem like they're fairly well off just by looking at their houses and their
Yeah.
clothing.
Yeah,
Like George has a gigantic house when you think about it.
Yeah.
They have a housekeeper, they have fancy evening
Yes,
wear
yes.
they put on when they're going to go out, they teach a bridge class in their house, so they're kind of ingrained in society a little bit, at least in the sense that
Yeah.
they're not poor.
But there are those distinctions that are those new social distinctions that are, I think, taking place because it's like we both have the, like you're saying, I think the bridge class is a great thing, which is also, I think, a point of contention between Lucy
Mhm.
and
Anita.
What is it? Anita, thank you. Because it's I think to Lucy, like the idea of even having a job, there's so many things that she kind of has to kind of relate to the kids in a different way, or the new family, like the fact that women drink at a bar is too much for her. And it's like
Right.
Anita just immediately takes umbrage with that and just be like, no, I'm literally making money for the family. Like,
Well-
and you are in a certain sense like kind of impeding on my
Right.
like on what we're trying to do here, in a certain sense. Like
Like she's just sitting in a rocking chair and existing, and all these people who are playing bridge, and so like they're talking to each other. Suddenly, just the
Yes.
creak of a chair is too much for them to
Yes.
continue playing their very fancy card game.
And then I think this whole film is kind of filled with those social distinctions. You have that moment where, I mean, Lucy kind of goes up to one of the tables and she's like, kind of like just kind of recounting her enjoyment of, like, she never played bridge. Like, she never really learned bridge. I mean, I think there's something like interesting about that like literally her mother or her daughter-in-law is teaching it and she's never going to play it. But then also her recounting her stories with her lower class games. And then kind of almost giving away, not realizing that she's giving away the strategy of the other players, because I think in a sense too, those games were not really about winning. Like the whole idea of even like strategy probably wouldn't make a whole lot of sense for like what maybe the reason why you would play a game in the first place. Like it may have just been more for the fun of it. I don't know if I'm reading too much into the way that she's talking there, or if it's just like, oh, she's an older woman.
This kind of plays into my like first impression of the movie, where there were a lot of things I was kind of confused about with the bridge scene. Like, how old was that group of people on average? I wrote, I can't tell if people just looked different back then or these people are in their 40s or 50s. That was before later in the script, George says, I think he's 46. But the main thing that stood out to me was the bridge class is humongous. George's house can hold 20 people in it, but they can't house both of the parents at once. And that is
actually
like,
is such a true.
that is something that keeps popping up throughout the movie and becomes one of the central themes, is that all of these children could sacrifice a little more to let the parents be together, especially Nellie. She's like, I'm going to ask my husband if I can do it. We just need 3 months for me to convince him that my parents should stay here for a little bit, which is a wild amount of time. And then she barely asks him. She's like, and he goes, like, no, we're seeing my mom tonight. It comes up with George. It comes up when Bark is staying with Cora. Some later scenes where a doctor comes to see him. It comes up when they talk about sending Bark to California for their other child that's out there. And it's a lot of stuff where most of my notes as the movie went on were just all caps. Like, why are they not doing this simple thing? If they can afford to send the dad to California, if they can afford to put the mom in a nursing home, why can't they also put the other parent there? And that is the point. Yeah. Like that's what struck me so long after the movie is that the point is that they could all be sacrificing just a tiny bit more and let the parents be together, but they don't want a burden. They
want to make way for tomorrow.
I mean, there's also stuff like that. Like Rhoda, I think, is a really important character in the movie. Rhoda is George's daughter, who has a good amount of scenes with Lucy and kind of brushes up against what the parents want, while also kind of she gets Lucy to say the entire point of the movie. Yeah.
I know. Here, let me find that for a moment. It's because there's something about, but also I think like both the point of the movie, but also like this distinction with like that
the generational gap,
the generational gap, and I like it's like it hurts me. So the way that she go ahead, please.
Rhoda's arc in the movie is that like the mom is sad that Rhoda can't have her friends over. Anita is sad that Rhoda can't have her friends over because Lucy is there. And for some reason, Lucy being there means that Rhoda is Rhoda can't bring her friends over. Like, she's worried that Rhoda is going to go out with unseemly types of people outside of the house where Anita can't control her. But eventually, during the bridge class, I think, Anita asks Rhoda to take Lucy to the movies. They go to the movies. Rhoda sneaks out and goes to hang out with this 35-year-old that she's dating who is literally more than twice her age. Rhoda is 17. That's fucked up. I don't even for the time. That's weird.
It's like because they're also talking about college for Rhoda and like and in a certain sense like I mean this also comes up with Anita and George as they're both describing the fact that like she's gonna leave home. Like if we don't figure out a way to make this fun for her, she's gonna leave and she'll be a working woman, and that's if anything that's the worst because that's the generational gap they don't want to get into. Right. They don't want to deal with the fact that like women are going to be more on their own. I mean, the we're not quite to the stereotype of like Rosie the Riveter, but they're going
to be showing their ankle all around town.
I mean, I think what's interesting is that like for as much as like you're saying that like they're worried about Lucy not like kind of keeping the friends away, it's like Rhoda's happy. I mean, kind of okay with. I mean, she wants her friends over, but there is a sense too where like. Well, this kind of gives her an excuse. And the grandma also helps her in that way, too. I mean, there is that moment where Lucy kind of covers for her, which I was really interested. That was a really interesting moment.
Rhoda and Lucy do grow closer as the movie goes on. And there's a scene where Lucy is like staying up late and she's knitting in George's house. And Rhoda comes up to her and she's... I'm forgetting exactly the line.
Yeah, well, I wrote down the line because
it's a good line.
Rhoda says to her, "Why won't you face facts, Grandma? When you're 70, like nobody's going to give you a job." Kind of, and then basically she replies, "When you are 70, the only fun you have left is pretending there ain't facts to face. So would you mind if I just went on pretending?" There's something there. There's. I mean, I think it is like you're saying. It really is the whole enchilada.
So Rhoda's arc kind of ends after something happens with her. She goes out to see her friend, and then
35-year-old friend.
Yeah, and then the mom gets a call from the cops? ? There's mention of a case or something like that. And then we never really hear exactly what it is. George and Anita talk about it in
the other room.
Other room, but they never say specifics. We know it's something at least unseemly or pointed enough that they don't want to mention it in front of the housekeeper. But we never figure out what it is.
Well, and that actually goes to a scene I wanted to go to, but I think I did want to stop there because I think that's an interesting piece to kind of a thread to kind of pull on. The fact that like there is this separation between them and this housekeeper they have, which I think even the fact that they have a domestic worker,
have a domestic worker. They have a black domestic worker in their house,
played by Louise Beavers, who I think I've seen in many films. I feel like I can immediately.
I mean, I feel like she was big in the black community in Hollywood at the time.
The script shows so much of like what role they want to give her as well, like where this plot sees her in the mix. Because I mean, the first scene we even see with Mammy, she's basically asking, like, I don't know if I can go on like this because like I'm having to stay here well into the night, like because you have your grandmother here who never goes to bed, or your I guess your mother-in-law. And like there's something about her response that Anita gives that just kind of like, oh well, this is only temporary, and it's like this is the most actually being imposed on Mammy. Like, I mean, in a certain sense, like she's not, I can't imagine she's getting paid all that much more to be doing this, but she literally is not allowed to have a life while she's here. And I mean,
it's yet another thing where they have the money to pay a housekeeper.
Yes.
But they don't have the money to, like, I don't know, help chip in for a smaller place for their parents or
absolutely
something like that. It's another just point of contention where they could sacrifice something and then just clean up their own fucking house.
No, I think that's kind of where I land with it. Is I was keeping note of it because I think it's such a, I mean, like you're saying, it's such an implication on the rest of sort of like the plot as it stands. Is sort of like this idea that they have that they don't have more space for her, or they just can't afford it, or they can't move it. But yeah, like none of the issue is actually about cost in a certain sense, which often is the case because it's both many conversations that are being had about the fact that, yeah, no, we just like don't want her here, or we want our daughter to have a normal life again, or Cora clearly does not want her here, or does not want her father there, and is finding every opportunity. I mean, as soon as she finds the excuse of, well, he's sick, he needs to move to California for his health,
which is like, a fucking what a wild jump.
I mean, but and also the doctor helps out with it. I mean, the doctor who comes in literally tells her like for her own health, it'd be better if he left.
Right. Well, the doctor
in so many words.
Like the thing with the doctor coming over had so much. That was when my first impression about the movie kind of started to turn more positive, where I was like, okay, I'm getting that there's a lot of shit going on. Because up until that point, I was like, Barkley just kind of sounds like a sad sack dude. Like he's going around, he's kind of talking like this to everybody.
Yes,
but he just kind of goes around being sad. And it was at that point in the movie where I'm like, no, the world has treated him like shit for a long time. He was a bookkeeper.
Yeah. I love that scene where he says, I am a bookkeeper. I love that distinction he gives with it, but you're right. Keep going.
He lost his job. He's losing his home. He blames himself that he cannot be with his wife, even though it's all of these children, all of their children's fault that they're not together. But they're also like, they've been together for 50 years. They have spent their entire lives together. To be separated like that, like I've been in a long distance relationship. It fucking sucks.
I mean, it's also like, it's like a phantom relationship in many ways. And well, they don't even get the daily calls.
Right. Like that's in a world where I could text I could FaceTime, I could call, I could send memes to them. But like that was something where if you were lucky, you'd get a letter from them every couple days or once a week. And maybe a phone call once a month, maybe even less if it was truly that expensive.
Well, and I mean, even taking the first scene with Mark is that he's going to basically to the store. I mean, to talk to Max, the storekeeper, but also just to get him to read the letter.
Yeah, because his glasses are broken.
Cora, I guess, is refusing to, or she doesn't, or he in some sense doesn't trust her.
I think Cora was like, Cora was using the excuse of, oh, this is too personal, which I guess Max kind of says the same thing too, where he's like, this is a deep love letter.
But I think even emotions probably, like there's sort of like those interpersonal emotions. I want to say I love this actor, Maurice
Moscovich. Yeah.
Moscovich, thank you. I mean, firstly, just his whole affect. I think that like as soon as he was on stage, just sort of his like the way that he's kind of he owns that store is something I really I don't know. I appreciated his whole performance. There's the quiet moments that he sits with. I mean, I think the first revelation we kind of get when he's reading the letter, some of it's kind of like stuff I think we are all pretty familiar with, but just the allusion to the old folks home, which I think is kind of a heartbreaking moment because it's like Lucy's recounting the fact that they go to the old folks home to kind of wish someone well. And Anita kind of says like, oh, it's so nice here. And Lucy thinks that she's just being nice. But then Lucy realizes that she's continuing to say that it's nice as soon as they leave. And there's sort of like something
There's
that
the
hangs in
realization
air.
that she's planting the seeds of like, okay, we're gonna stick her in this old folks home.
Yeah. And like
Which
I mean,
must
I don't know
have
if this has been
cost
something
money,
you
right?
That's hard to say. Like, I would really, there's some of the economics of this movie that's really interesting. But no, I mean, I think there's a tragedy there. And I think, I mean, like, I don't know if you've gone through this, but I definitely have had family who I've wrestled with this sort of like, what is the right line? And some family members are like, let's fucking do it. They still want to live on their own, but like, they're not necessarily loving the situation they're at now. Lucy kind of finds her way of kind of easing everyone's minds about the decision that comes later. But that old folks home, I think, is just something that I think has been sitting with, I think, American culture in general for a long time. We all know it's not a great solution to this situation.
I think the old folks home is kind of the representation of the ideal thing for the children, which is to just pawn off their parents to somebody else and let them deal with it. And the old folks home is the perfect thing. They can pay, I guess, a tiny bit of money and not have to worry about their mom until they want to go visit her. And like, if anything terrible happens, they'll get a call and then they can go over there and be like, oh, we came as soon as we heard, instead of actually having to deal with them. It's one of the reasons that like the end of Lucy's arc near the end of the movie is so sad, because she sees that George and Anita got this letter in the mail from the retirement home. She accepts it. She's like, no, I do want to go. I think it looks nice, but we know that that's a lie. She just wants to take the burden off of George. And at the end of this conversation, like, she goes up to him and she hugs him. She's like, you know, you were always my favorite.
My favorite.
And that's like, we don't get to see a lot of the children's relationships with each other, except for at the beginning and at this one scene near the end. But from what we see, George is the one who puts the most effort in. Yeah. Which is still not a whole lot. Like, he is the one kind of fighting for Lucy to be at his house, and he is the one like trying to acclimate her to their life. But at the same time, he is the breadwinner because he's a white man in the 30s. Like, that's what he's going and doing. And so he can't be at home all the time. And so like he is kind of pulled a lot of different ways, while also I think being the one who's kind of mediating between the rest of the children and the parents.
I'm very much, because I mean, I think he's the first one we're introduced to as he's walking into the house. And
I wrote that down. I was like, I thought at the beginning of this movie that George was the protagonist because he's the first one we see. Yeah. He's kind of who we follow as they introduce the rest of the characters, and he's the one whose house we spend the most time at. And like 10 minutes in, I was like, that he's not the protagonist. What the fuck?
George, you're like, oh well. I mean, Thomas Mitchell kind of has that like very, I don't know, leading man vibe. But he
has that protagonist strut,
And when I think what's interesting too is even just the fact that it probably is kind of deconstructive in the way that it's probably intentional in the sense that like we expect the film to be about the younger folks, to be about the family man, when it's actually about like this older generation as they're kind of like, they get their final moment together. I mean, kind of going to that, is it like this idea that these grandparents still actually do want to be self-sufficient. It's just the fact of like where people expect them to be, like kind of, and where they kind of are put at different points. And I think that is something I think also to be said about this era too. And not to say this doesn't relate to now, but this idea of like useful or unuseful people, or people who are productive or not productive. There's so much. I mean, when I was younger, I studied in history. There was such a focus on like the productive citizen, and so many different cultures, and this kind of coming into sense with. Also just when we're starting to actually relate to this idea of like, how do we adjust to people who have disabilities or are differently abled, and people who like don't necessarily fit into like what is I guess like this, I don't know, like 18 to 25 kind of range is like the peak productivity for whatever your state is, whatever your country is. And like people are, at a certain point are put into boxes. You feel that throughout the movie where it's like, these people have as much to give as anyone else.
When you stop being able to generate value, you stop being valuable.
Yes. You're a burden. Yeah. And that's the worst thing to be. But it did make me think. I wanted to look up like when Social Security was.
I did look this up,
and
this was kind of advocacy for Social Security, from what I could tell. Which it wasn't. The act passed in 1935, but it was still being implemented when this movie came out, and I
Absolutely.
think it was fully implemented the year afterwards.
It's like without that something to assist folks late into their age, they really, I mean, like that you lack that self-sufficiency. And it's like, it is impossible to plan in this country because it's like, we really are just fucking eat dog world that we just didn't have it before then. Like, it's like you just beat, I mean, because imagine them not even having these shitty kids. Well, they're fucked. Like,
Well, and with that, like, I think that's what makes the end of the movie so... Bark is coming to the big city, to wherever Lucy is. They're supposed to meet up with all the children and have like a farewell dinner before Bark gets on the train to go to California. I guess ostensibly like Lucy is going to then go over to the nursing home. So
yes,
they're meeting up. The parents have a little bit of, or Bark and Lucy, I keep calling them the parents, but like the grandparents, I guess.
We know.
Have a little bit of time, so they want to go enjoy the city because it's where they had their honeymoon, and it's, I guess, the one place that they ever really traveled to together before they couldn't anymore just because of money and time. And we get this series of scenes that build up so much chemistry between the two of them and give you all this depth, and we finally see Bark and Lucy being happy together. But with that, they're also not being expected to contribute anywhere, and not in like a malicious way. This car salesman is trying to get them to buy one of his cars, thinking that they have money, even though they don't. And he drives them around to all these places before finally dropping them off at this hotel that they had dinner at on their honeymoon. And he's like, all right, do you want to buy the car? And they're like, no, we're sorry. And he doesn't get mad at them for it. He's just like, you know what? I did just want to show off the car. Thank you guys for spending the afternoon with me. And he goes away. They go into this hotel. They're talking to this new staff and just recounting when they were there 50 years ago. And the owner of the hotel buys them dinner. He says, we hope we see you again. And they're not expected to pay. They're just treated as equals or even more than equals because they have all these stories to tell and all of this, like the depth to their relationship. And the children are just kind of sitting at home waiting for them to come to this dinner that they never end up going to.
Well, even just the fact that it was a focus on the dinner and on their parents.
Yeah.
Like they were like, I think
they were seeing it as an obligation.
And I think what's interesting is like, as soon as they're out in this environment where like actually they have a lot to offer because they're just like, they are a physical embodiment of that older time. They know exactly what it used to be like.
That's as close as you're going to get to reliving that. All they have is that memory of it. And I think they could very well be some of the last people that will ever go in there that remember what it was 50 years ago.
Absolutely. Well, and I think it's really notable, too, is going back to the kiddos waiting for them on dinner. It's like they're not sharing in that moment. Like it's both nice that Bark and Lucy are sharing this moment, but like the kids are missing out on this part of their parents they'll never know.
Good.
They'll never see them in this.
They don't deserve it.
They don't deserve it, especially Robert.
Fuck you, Robert.
I mean, I also love the moment where like the dad, like he goes into the phone booth and just like says something apparently incredibly nasty to like to the children, just like, you shut the, I don't know, whatever the fuck.
He shuts the door and then it's like he very obviously mouths something and doesn't actually say anything, and then he comes back out, and even before he opens the door, like he starts talking, and you're like, the 30s.
I wrote this down when they get into the space. Like I love this little moment where like it's the one moment the camera gets really wide.
That compared to, especially at the beginning, where it does feel a lot more like a play, and it's these very long takes with not a lot of motion. If there is motion in the camera work, it's just to reframe when someone goes from one very specific blocking point to their next position. And then, later as the parents get to spend more time with each other, the camera starts to move a little more. We get some very interesting looking rear projection stuff where the technology just wasn't really there.
Kind of returning, though, I did want to see, what'd you think? What did that one scene when they're dancing, that shot, the reverse shot with the composer and them two dancing, what did that make you think of?
I'm not super well versed in like the Busby Berkeley, the revue, REVUE style movies, but it made me think of that, where it's like movies as escapism were kind of at their height. This movie is a big song and dance. This movie is just some fun music and really good choreography to distract you from the World War going on or the Depression that's happening. You're going to watch some dancing and then you're going to go home and you're going to think about how cool the dancing was until you can scrap together another 10 cents to see a movie next week.
Well, I thought it was actually Back to the Future. I was just thinking of that song, just that scene where Marty's on stage and he like gives him the fucking wave. I was just like, if Robert Zemeckis did not take this from this film, I was just like, this is literally the same shots. Except that the composer's hand was not disappearing, sadly. Not that cool.
Man, if those people played Johnny Be Good instead of whatever fucking song that was, that'd be sick.
But then obviously it hits 9, and at first I wasn't really sure what that meant. I was like, are they being like ushered away? But it's like, oh no, they're gonna be late for the train. Mm-hmm. Which, God, this fucking train scene, dude.
So, but before the train scene, there's one other bit of their like walk through the city, and I think it's on the bench that it was the second of Lucy's big 3 like monologues in the movie. I guess 4 because she recites a poem to Bark a little bit later. She's talking to Bark on this bench and she mentions happiness and she's like, some people get a little bit of happiness at the beginning, some people get a little bit of it in the middle, and some people just have it spread thin throughout their entire lives.
Yeah.
And that shit hurty. like that made sad. But it just like that hit me really hard that this woman, despite dealing with very obvious just kind of disregard of her well-being from all of her children, she still wants to sacrifice as much as she can to make them happy, despite it basically destroying her life in the process. She doesn't want to be a burden. She's willing to go to this old folks home and worry about her husband. And so she's come to terms with the fact that she is either past her point of experiencing happiness or she is getting it spread very thin throughout her life, and that means that she'll never get a whole lot of it at one point.
There's sort of that distinction that happens through the movie where I think it almost pretends to be a different type of movie a little bit, and then you kind of, all these characters become more three-dimensional as it progresses.
It's a tragedy, there's romance aspects, there's a comedic bit, like I didn't mention this when we were talking about the hotel scene, but they're at the bar, and Bark says, ladies are drinking here. The camera does a quick pan over to this woman who just fucking houses a shot and then pans back. That's such a good little bit. Like, that is really legitimately funny, not in like a 1930s comedy type of way.
Yes, no, you're completely right. I mean, or even like when they're doing a little bit, they're drinking, and I mean, I guess at this point, like, they're just blitzed, man. They're just fucking blitzed.
I love their tipsy acting. It's so much fun.
It's very good. And like they're having her like say fucking words like butterbeer, whatever the fuck, and like there's something very cute about it that I feel it's also just, even for today, really rare, like incredibly rare.
I wrote down, I would have loved to see more of this chemistry at the beginning of the movie before they get separated, which would have made me feel the distance between them much more. But again, like, that is the point. The point is that they feel like a burden because you're seeing it from the perspective of the children, and then it flips it on its head when they're together. And you see how good of a couple they are, how fun they are to watch. It's not just people kind of bitching like all of the kids do for the whole fucking movie.
Well, it's like you're saying, like, you kind of like go back through the film and you're like, oh, what they had lost from each other.
And then that brings us all the way to the end of the movie, which is such a fucking gut punch.
When they're both like apologizing to each other, like,
god damn,
there's something about like you just have that moment where they're both, I mean, kind of recounting the fact that they feel that they never lived up to each other, and they're both feeling that way. I don't know, there's something really poetic, you could say.
Well, so what happens at the end of the movie? Like, give me a couple sentences on how this ends.
Absolutely. They're at their last waltz. The announcer, the composer, kind of comes on and it's like, it's 9 p.m. It's 9 p.m. I hope everyone's having a lovely night. And they realize that they only have like 5 minutes. They need to make it to the train station. And the kids kind of, we see kind of a moment with them as they're like, well, are we going to make it? And George kind of says, well, I mean, they should probably be alone. Then we get to the train station and they're kind of rushing, and there's just this kind of really hard conversation where they're kind of recounting both like what they wish, what they could have done. And the thing that stuck with me in this moment is just that if I don't see you again, and there's sort of like this not wanting to do that, like it's like, we don't know, we have no idea. You're literally going all the way to California, which in 1937 is like, you're dead. You're gone. Well, like, it's LA. It's the 40s. You're dead. It's gone.
They're saying goodbye to each other, and there's such hope in their voices that like they're going to be together. Bart's like, I'm going to get a job, and then I'll bring you out here. And she's like, I know you will. But then it's like, just in case, goodbye for good.
Well, and it's like Lucy, I think kind of going back to that earlier conversation with Rhoda, is that like she knows that he's not going to get a job.
Yeah.
She's, just kind of going to that. It's like, let's pretend for a little bit longer. I don't know. I think we all need that too.
It's all about sacrificing to make other people happy. And it always falls on the parents to do that for their children, despite for 50 years trying to give them the best lives that they could. And the movie just ends with Lucy like watching Bart go off in the train and then turning away.
She's like she's following him for a little bit. And I think that's something kind of going to the idea of the narrative vibes, or like kind of what I'm used to in films. It's like that is such an older film ending to me.
Like that's the end of the story. Like that is where it's gonna stop. Fuck off.
It did say fuck off then, which I was surprised by.
In like the same big Art Deco font that it said honor thy father and thy mother, the big orchestra swell, fade to black, then comes up, hey, fuck off.
The code should have been implemented. That's why we got the MCAA after that. It just, these people, these Hollywood jerks.
These Hollywood bigwigs telling me to fuck off after making me sad.
Making me sad. Well, do you have any final thoughts? Or
I was going to say, when I was watching this movie, because I went in almost completely blind. I didn't do a lot of research. And even at the beginning, I was like, I know this is made in the 30s, but was that when the Depression was with a question mark? Because I'm not a good history student. While I was watching it, I was like, this is so frustrating. There are all these easy solutions to this problem, and no one's doing anything about it. And then, like...
You're like you're like cinema sins. You're like, I'm dinging the fuck out of this movie. If I had a little bell...
But yeah, then it was right around when they talk about the old folks home that I started to kind of change on it, and I was like, oh, that's the point. I'm a fucking idiot. And then it became so heartbreaking in retrospect, and I was like,
you had to ding yourself.
I had to ding myself. I don't. Anyway,
you were the original sin.
I was. Damn, why you gotta do me like that? Like my notes went from like all caps with a bunch of question marks. Why are they doing this? Robert, what the fuck? And to just like, this is really sad. I feel really sad. People were willing to do so much during the Depression to just keep what they had. Not necessarily work to get more, but just to keep the status quo. And no matter what some people did, it just wasn't enough, or they couldn't find that other opportunity. I feel really angry at myself that at the beginning I wasn't understanding it enough to be like it, because the first half I was like, I don't think I get why this movie's here.
You turn around and it is indeed the astronaut with the gun, and you're like,
it was always good.
We are talking. This is the great. It was always good.
What is your kind of final take, and then we can talk about some other like. Ending little bits of research for this movie that kind of give it some reputation.
Well, I'll let you lead on that, because I think I had so many thoughts with this that I didn't go quite as much research after the fact. But I think with me, I will say that it did capture me like pretty early on. I was into the comedy of it, I guess. It was interesting in the sense that like I think the heartfeltness of it didn't really hit, I think, until Max's scene. I think that really kind of gutted me a little bit. There was something about, and it took me a second to also get into Bark's character. I felt like,
me too.
His three-dimensionalness, I think, didn't really come out, and I think I probably by design. I think there was like a kind of wantingness to make them feel so much older when they were around the.
Bark really didn't have a lot to contribute to the movie until him and Lucy are back together.
Absolutely. And when I think that, like, it's so beautiful in that sense too, because it's just like they open up a different side of each other that just isn't activated. It does not exist without the other person there.
Yeah.
That's hard when they're the train.
Really good performances, really good writing, which kind of gives. I said this earlier, but the cast and the crew of this movie was really, really stacked for the time. Which I know is kind of a product of the studio system being like, hey, you're going to make 6 movies for us, and these people that we have already contracted are just going to be in it. Enjoy.
Yes.
But Leo McCarey, he won 4 Academy Awards. He was nominated for 5 more. He also did Awful Truth, which was nominated the same year as this movie. And in his acceptance speech for Awful Truth, he was like, I thank you, but you gave it to me for the wrong movie. He said this one should have won Best Director.
That's actually pretty like baller. That's to be like, especially I'm like so good.
In 1937, like that was maybe the 10th Oscars. And you keep saying like the comedy in this movie is really good. the director had done a bunch of comedies in the 30s before kind of using this movie and the ones he made afterwards to pivot a little more towards movies with like a drama, but also movies with like a more social message. Because this was a movie that advocated a lot for the introduction of social security.
That's really, well, I mean, sold me. I mean, I was against it before.
Before this movie, I didn't want social security.
I didn't want to defund it, and
I was so sure I'd be dead by the time I was 70 that I didn't give a fuck. Not necessarily would or would you not recommend this movie, but who would you recommend this movie to?
You mean like an individual or the type of person?
I don't know, like people who like these types of movies, or I guess what kind of more...
They don't know anyone. They don't know anyone I know.
Right, or like what kind of more modern movies would you compare this to?
I would say, honestly, this one's hard because I feel like this kind of film is kind of lost in some ways. Or I won't say lost.
Bad Grandpa.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, my immediate go-to is like something like Marriage Story, which might be a weird one as a comparison, but there's something about like films that... Oh, you know what? Noah Baumbach. I mean, like that's his film, but like Noah Baumbach.
The Meyerowitz stories.
Yes, exactly. This is it. I think the closest. I love that film.
Yeah, it like movies with very particular family dynamics, like Little Miss Sunshine, kind of came to mind.
Yes, that's a really good point. Yeah, because even though this one is filled with kind of these more jokey or clever lines, that definitely has that. You would be surprised to find that it is has a sensibility that they'd appreciate.
I think like if you can get past the kind of complete departure from modern movie sensibilities, because it very much feels like a movie from the 30s, not in a bad way, but like it's well worth watching, and it's one where I think it's better going in with a little bit of historical context instead of going in blind, because going in blind, I was just a little more frustrated with it, but that also could just be that I'm stupid.
Well, and I think it's also familiarity with the time period. I think it always...
sure.
If you made it this far, listener, you either are really down to watch this movie or you already have. So it'd be real... I mean, you know what? More power to you if you listen to this without that, because that's, you're sweet. It's very nice
thanks.
Of you. But just you listening later to edit it.
Yeah. Hey,
Thank you,
Jacob in the future. Thanks. And just for you. Cool. Well, anyway, on that note, let's move on to our second movie of the three, which is crazy given that we just talked about, I don't know how long it's going to be in the edit, but we just talked about Make Way for Tomorrow for like an hour and a half.
Was it only an hour? I thought it was like 2.
We had a lot to say.
It's an amount of time.
It's an amount of time.
You know what? I mean, in relation to this movie, it's hard to say how much time has passed, what is actually happening, what is the past, what is the future, and who controls the present. For tonight, we're talking about 1984, directed by Michael Radford. It's also from 1984. He was the director and writer. And the main actor of the film, Winston Smith, played by John Hurt, as our leading man. I wanted to, before we get too deep into this, I wanted to hear what you had to say about what the plot of this film is, as if there's folks out there that'd be like, 1984. But there might be.
People who only know it from the meme of like the guy flipping the calendar over. All right, so 1984 is a movie, I think it's the quintessential dystopian movie, where an all-powerful fascist regime led by Big Brother has taken over the world. And we are seeing it from the perspective of Winston, played by John Hurt, like you said, who is living in London, which is, I think, one of like the epicenters of power for Ingsoc, which is like Newspeak for English society. Newspeak is kind of like a new way of policing how people think and speak. In this movie, Winston is keeping a journal to try and keep his own thoughts. And when he starts to have an affair with Julia, who is another woman in the resistance, things start to go a little sideways for Winston. It is a really depressing movie, especially because, and I kind of stopped myself while I was taking notes about it from saying this too much, but there's a lot of things we see in this movie that are not fiction anymore in the way that a certain government is functioning, and it makes it
Canada has to get its fucking shit together.
Yeah, it's Justin insane. Trudeau, I know you're not in power anymore,
No, he's fine. He's with Katy Perry. He's realized what the true
astronaut Katy Perry
is.
But anyway, 1984.
No, well, yeah, 1984. Another thought crime. Another world of thought crime. Well, I wanted to hear about your relationship with this movie, because I imagine a lot of people have had over the years to either this story or this movie. or other adaptations of it, is that there's this relationship where it's like, this is today, or this relates to how we're feeling today. Because you said you had seen it. Well, I mean, how have you? Did your feelings change? Were you always like hyped on this movie?
I read the book in, I think, middle or high school, like 8th or ninth grade. And then watched the movie as part of a literature and film class at my high school, where we would like read a book and then watch the movie that was based on the book. And I remember really liking it just because, that was firmly in the Obama era. And I was like, wow, that's crazy that should happen. But also we had learned a lot about the Holocaust in school. And the book written in the late 40s was, directly referencing the Holocaust and other fascist government of the time. And so it was something where I was like, it's crazy, all of this stuff that could happen just by a government gaining too much power. And I also I enjoy this movie. I think it's very well done. I know a lot of people say it is not as good as the book. This is a less than 2-hour movie. It's gonna have to cut some corners in places, but it's incredibly acted. Roger Deakins is one of the best cinematographers of all time, and this was his second feature ever.
What?
It's just it's I really love this movie. I fucking hate watching it because it is so depressing, especially right now.
I'm realizing, because I mentioned a little bit off mic that I was like, I never seen the film, but it was slightly like, because I've seen excerpts in class, like you were saying, but I definitely have started this movie several times. Not to say that it didn't capture me, because I think, like, I mean, you look at just the lighting and the cinematography of the film is just gorgeous, and there is just, I mean, I think it's the dourness. I think I never full. I mean, because you really have to sit in the silent moments, which I appreciated here just as a full watch. But I definitely it was harder for me to get into as like a first go. It's
one of those movies where like so much of it has kind of become just part of the cultural zeitgeist that like things are called Orwellian, or people say Big Brother is watching you. So you're kind of aware of it, even if you haven't seen it or read the book. And
it definitely is. I mean, this is a story that I think, and as we kind of mentioned earlier, and I hope you don't cut it, because I hope you don't cut our thought crimes about Melania. And I'm making a part, so it's integral now.
I know. I was going to say, you motherfucker, integral. For calling back to a thing that I don't want to include.
I want to cement that film with our review of this.
You're going to hear some editing of Nick's voice. It's like, and also I think that the movie is good. And just really shittily cut together.
I think it's worthwhile talking about. George Orwell was not talking about American politics necessarily. I mean, he was talking about European authoritarian regimes. So it's like, I mean, the fascism of Nazi Germany and the totalitarian authoritarianism of Stalinist communism. So I think I liked what you said. I mean, before, when you were talking about like this idea that like it's this, how prescient it could be, but it was also so contemporary to his moment.
It's also like it's an interesting exploration of like, what if those parties rose to power and then a bunch of time passed? Because like book was written in the 40s, set in the 80s. Where would we be?
I think it's such an important piece, and I guess it kind of starts with the opening a little bit here, is that like thinking about that participation.
The 2 minutes hate.
Like
that's what it's called.
2 minutes hate. Oh yes. I think this opening where we see Winston, I mean, and just a crowd of people have kind of reacting to this newsreel. That, I mean, it is a ritual. I mean, we see several times throughout the film. And many of the things that they do are ritualistic. And this is a very big piece, I think, of like anytime I've done research of both fascist regimes and in the Stalinist USSR, it's like you're saying, they want to be inside your lives. They want to have a handprint. They want to be a part of it. And that also goes to like an enjoyment. I mean, this ritual that they're performing where they're all having this like visceral reaction is as much about the enjoyment of participating with other people. The beginning of the book is just this scene, at least from my memory. And it's just that moment where I remember like Winston describing in his head this visceral hate that he has for, he can't place. He doesn't understand why, after seeing everybody else kind of participating in this, yelling at the screen of, what is the name?
Emmanuel Goldstein, which...
Goldstein.
Very pointed name, given the time that it was written and the people it's about.
Absolutely. Well, that is such a key piece of this whole thing, which both goes to that Stalin and obviously the Nazism of it all. Like it is... Like, and I think it's so much allegory in this that just speaks to so much of what we're dealing with now, and also dealing with that.
You can see kind of the different like stages of acceptance for this stuff. Like Winston is following along because it's what's expected of him. He sees the like higher officers surveying the crowd. He sees Julia, who at that point we just think is very devoted to the cause and is like fully given over to it, but still kind of exhibits some, I don't know if it's misgivings, but just she kind of is also looking around suspiciously as if she's also looking for people who potentially agree, as we see later. Like she's looking for others that don't follow what Ingsosh wants them to do. But it could also be at that point people who are dissenting, and she wants to report them and be a good little worker bee. But then we also see Winston's friends who have convinced themselves that they're happy about what's going on and are just ecstatic to be able to yell their hatred at this guy who we see this big monologue he's giving, Emmanuel Goldstein is giving, of all the things that he supposedly did. And like, even then you can tell that it's propaganda, because he's talking about like how he knowingly gave himself syphilis so that he could infect the rest of the people. But I mean, that's all part of the strategies that they're using to indoctrinate these people. And that's something that kept sticking out to me, is just how many different areas of existence you would have to keep a fight going in just to retain your individuality. Like, they're not just controlling the news, but they're controlling how the news is written so that you come into it with a bias. There's this whole thing about like they're lowering the weekly ration of chocolate from 30 grams to 25, which, by the way, that's like 3 squares of a Hershey's bar every week, which is fucked.
Yeah. I think one of my favorite things about this film is like the fact that Winston is given a role of rewriting history, but in a sense is also being given to his face, from his position, is being given the fact that none of this is real. This kind of plays into, I mean, things, revelations or descriptions of like how this goes later on in the film, like when we meet O'Brien's character as fully revealed, I guess, as to what he is or what he's doing.
Cold ass line.
Cold ass line by Richard Burton. Dude, fucking rocking this movie. But I think there's something about the play that's happening always in this film is like it's an acceptance of a lie. It's like it is the acknowledgement that we all know this is false. But I don't know, there's something like very evocative of just about him having to relate to these images that he knows are
wrong,
but then those affecting the future, because all the things that he's censoring are then having tangible effects in the world. Like he's losing coworkers, he's creating the history that he's not even listening to anymore, and then he himself, like, I mean, later on in the film is literally confessing crimes that didn't exist, but then is influencing a whole new it's very,
I think
very
there's
good.
something, it's a great movie. I think there's something to be said that like the way I was reading it was like all the other people that he's working with that are much more red-pilled, I guess, to the Ingsosh stuff, is that they're made to think that these are all lies of a previous society, kind of like how all of these people in Eurasia are savages and criminals and syphilis havers. It's like whoever was writing these articles before, or whoever may be writing them now, is lying or was lying. And I mean, the place they work at is called the Ministry of Truth. So damn, Orwell, you done did that one. But there's a whole bunch of little bits in here that contribute to this crushing feeling of superiority of power, even before we get to kind of the second act twist near the middle of the movie.
Yeah, I would like to spend some time with John Hurt, because his portrayal of Winston is just
so good. So good.
He has this solemnness to him, but also this love that he also is able to convey at different moments. And I mean, it's
a lot of humanity,
but like clearly muted. And Julia has this too. They both play, and I think a lot of the actors do this mutedness, emotionalness, where the emotions are always kind of filtered through something else, if that makes sense. Which I can only imagine is incredibly difficult. And I just he's such a rock of this movie, because you really are just sitting with 5 characters, effectively 4 basically.
Anytime I watch a movie that Roger Deakins shot, I can't help but just being like, damn, what a shot. And some of the ones in here really stuck out. Like the opening shot, with all those silhouettes in the crowd just looking at the big still image of Big Brother. There's one where Winston is writing in his journal, and it's this slow pullback as you see the gigantic TV in his house that just is always showing propaganda with the big ass INSO crest underneath it.
Mm-hmm.
There's just so much in this movie, even before it gets into the more dreamlike and trancy stuff, that it makes a much quicker shorthand than just saying like, look, Big Brother bad.
It's something that you feel, and I think this film is so much about kind of sitting in these moments of that back and forth of the truth, the untruth, of the daily existence of people who live in this world, but also the double lives they're all living. And I think it's, I mean, something that I almost immediately felt like as soon as we were really sitting with Winston, and then obviously when we then met Julia, is just how many people are pulled into that persuasion, because it's pretty clear to me, at least, that like this is like a part of the process. They want people to commit thought crimes. Like it is as much a part of the infrastructure of this world to create enemies. Like it's all part of this industrial wearing down of the person.
The more people that they can turn into villains, the more influence they can have over the public that may not be fully won over, but will get there eventually. Like it's all about wearing it down. And that's why they have like double agents rooted around places. That's why they have surveyors. That's why they have people to double check the work being done so that nothing can get through. And if something does, they can turn them into a martyr.
Because I think that is often the tension in the early parts of the movie is just like, when are they going to be found out? But it really is just the fact that they've always been under surveillance.
It's something where they don't want to go after them until they're fully convinced that they can turn them into more propaganda to use.
But in a sense, they are already going to lie about what you're going to do. They don't actually need any of these crimes in the first place. But they are concerned, I think O'Brien, or at least these thought police in a sense, are concerned with people who do want the next generation, like those thoughts, to continue.
Well, I don't know if they could do it anytime, because I think we'll get more into kind of the last half hour of the movie eventually, but I think a big, not moral, but like one of the driving forces of that scene is that they need him to believe he's done enough wrong that he will lose any sense of himself. And if he just buys a journal and writes stuff down, yes, that's thought crime, but that's not something large enough for him to break his last promise to himself, for him to give up everything that he ever cared about just so that the pain of being tortured will stop. Only when they're conspiring against the government, and only when they're repeatedly fucking in the room, that they come after them, because then it's like, okay, these people have a stake in each other now. Now we have something we can strip away from them to leave them with nothing, not even humanity.
Because I feel like the film alludes a lot more to a lot of these phrases, or in a way that was actually surprising, because it's like I was expecting like Big Brother's watching to be like said.
I don't know if this is real, but I only think we see or hear the words Big Brother one time in the entire movie. And it's like an hour and a half in. It's one single line. I think everywhere else it's either hidden from screen or BB, and it's like a pivotal part of the torture scene.
Yeah, the moment with O'Brien. Yeah. I think you're right, because I mean, I don't remember, but like it's such an iconic piece of...
It's kind of Voldemort-y, where these people are so scared of Big Brother or scared into loving him that they're afraid to say his name. Like that newspaper scene, I think one of the reasons it stuck out to me is that it's a headline that's like, BB takes Eurasia, or something along those lines. And BB is on its own line in the headline. There's clear room for Big Brother, but there's something about it that the society is like scared to acknowledge him in a way that isn't doing the Wakanda Forever salute at the screen. For lack of a way to say
no,
that
I get
better.
What you're saying. Yeah, the crossed arms. Yeah, no, I did not make that connection.
It's definitely not that. Wakanda Forever is not
no, it's different.
It's
different. But yes, absolutely.
You mentioned earlier like how not being able, one of the ways that it shows this power is in a way that's hard to put into words. And one of the things that stuck out a lot to me with this watching of the movie, and it might just be on not like a projector going to a smartboard in class, the use of color in this movie is insane. Another +1 for Raji Dinks, but I don't know if that was something you picked up on or...
Well, my immediate thought goes to, because the first, I think, real mention of color that I identified with was... the red lips, and then the red sash, and even just the colors of...
My headcanon is is that
Yeah.
this is a Christmas movie because the only real bits of non-sepia tone color we see are red and green. But yeah, the red on like the prostitute's lipstick, on Julia's sash.
Yes.
There's very clear red in some of the propaganda posters, but there's also like the green of the grass in Winston's dreams, in the forest when they run away for the first time,
forest.
the pink of the coral that he finds. But one of the things I also know is like there's a few bits of fire in this movie. Like there's one where Winston is in the proletariat area and a bomb gets dropped, and that fire, I don't know if this was intentional or not, but the fire is like almost completely either blown out or just one color.
Yeah.
But then there's another bit later in the movie, and I'm trying to find when Ingsosh is occupying Eurasia and they're showing a newsreel of the war on the propaganda TVs. Those flames are very clearly like bright orange. There's something different to those flames in those parts.
I did not catch that. There is so many like little moments like that I mean, because there is that drab. We're going through the motions and everything is unsanitary and kind of disgusting, but also so uniform at the same time, which is an interesting distinction. I mean, everyone has to be kind of very perfectly proper and kind of put together, but in environments that are clearly blown out, war torn, have not been repaired, are never going to be repaired. While you hear on the like the microphones, they're just over and over. Production is up 450%. Production is. I just know from reading so many different accounts of like early Soviet propaganda, or just like the way that they would kind of do newsreels and stuff, is there was always this focus on production and often an inflation of how well production was going, and sometimes that would be like the fact people were just killing themselves, but also just people would be like 450%, like our bananas are they're flying off the shelves, like we're just doing so well. But then it's like, you clearly are not getting any of those things.
Well, yeah, and I mean we see that like Julia brings a bag of contraband. She brings bread, coffee, tea, all this stuff that she says the Ingsosh people have, and it's like these are not expensive things. These are not difficult things to acquire. It's just they're simply refusing to give them to people. Like Winston, at least from how O'Brien phrases it, doesn't know what wine is or isn't expected to. When he brings him up to his office, like, it's called wine. Oh, as the movie goes on, they start to meet outside of London in first like a woody area that I think Winston says is like an area where they do community hikes. And then they start to meet at a room that Winston rents from a shopkeeper in the proletariat area. And it's there that they meet up, they have sex, they like have all this contraband stuff. And throughout all this, Winston is journaling, which is thought crime because he's writing down stuff in not newspeak, and also that is clearly against the party.
That whole scene when he goes out on the train is interesting to me because it implies something about he's allowed to access. She asks if he has a pass to get out of there. But like it's pretty clear the only people who are actually going out that way.
But there's also like that guy who talks to Winston while he's waiting for the train that's like kind of vetting
You're
him.
alone?
Everyone is suspicious of everybody else, and that is some of what Ingsosh is trying to do. If everyone is suspicious, then they'll never have time to work on themselves or do thought crime because they're going to be so worried about everybody else.
And in a certain sense, it's also a performance to each other too. It's like it's like I always think
calling
like
everybody
so much
brother,
of
doing the 2 minutes hate, like it's all this stuff that is just keeping up appearances.
And I noticed earlier, it's like some guy who is like who gets cut out later, like it's a coworker of Winston's that like he ends up actually like physically cutting out of the newspaper. But he also earlier was like trying to at least elicit the feeling like, oh, I'm for the party. I'm down the line. I don't know. I love that idea that everyone is kind of lying to them. I don't know, themselves. Like,
well, I think some of that
everywhere.
Is the strategy where it's like if you have them think that enough, even if they're lying to themselves, eventually it will become real. And I mean, I think that's kind of mirrored a little bit in what Winston and Julia are doing. Like they're lying to themselves that they can fix things or that they can escape or that they can do something to stand up. And eventually they believe it. And it's as soon as they start to believe it and they see the beauty in the world outside of Big Brother's reach, they spend a night together. They're standing naked in the window watching a lady do her laundry on a wire, and she's just singing to herself. And they're looking at her and saying, that's beautiful. And as soon as that happens, that's when shit turn sideways for both of them.
No, and all the pieces are there, like when it happens.
Oh,
but,
yeah.
Did we want to go into that fully?
I think so. But there's one more thing right before that I do not remember the last time I saw this movie. There being so much, like, it's going to get weird, but like so much shit about orgasms in this movie. There's a lot about like
I think
that.
that's a big piece of the book.
It is.
Too.
That is the last thing that they can control is human pleasure and happiness. And so even just in the act of being with each other, like that is the first big crime that each of them commit where they're doing this in staunch opposition to the party.
And then that just juxtaposed with the instructional kind of vocational lesson about how they're just on the verge of getting rid of the human orgasm.
Mm-hmm. I mean, even in describing it in such a clinical way, they're robbing it of any bit of bias or subjectiveness to it. Like they're saying, this is a thing that we are eradicating. This is not something that you get to have a thought about. Isn't it great that so many people have pledged a vow to help us do that?
Yeah.
And I think they say multiple times, like their end goal is to eliminate the individual and just have a mass. And that comes in again when O'Brien is talking about power later. Another thing that happens right before this is O'Brien calls Winston to his office in one of the high society buildings and gives him wine, talks to him a little bit about stuff, and also shows him that he can turn off the propaganda TV, which clues Winston in to be like, maybe he's also a thought criminal. Maybe he's part of the resistance. And O'Brien hands him a new dictionary for newspeak that he says isn't hitting the shelves yet. And when Winston goes looking through it, he sees that the pages are glued together, but when he peels them apart, it is Goldstein's manifesto.
And even just the fact of like O'Brien's whole performance in that scene is just so clearly mediating between how much does he know, and then also, is he my friend?
Yeah.
Exactly. And even what he says, I think, I mean, that whole conversation he has, it's like the reality is infinitely more subtle about like who the followers or the connections between the followers of Goldstein are. Is that there's no list. It does not exist. They're not an organization. It's just like it's just a collection of ideas. It's a lack of control. They have no real way of holding on to or possessing any power over anyone's individual memories. They just have to make you believe you don't believe them, I guess. But
he hands the 10th edition to Winston, and then Goldstein's manifesto is in there, and that ends up being Winston's downfall.
I mean, because there's no going back. And he's reading it to her.
He's reading it to her.
Yeah.
And then the thought police come and find them. The shopkeeper turns them in, and they get taken to, I think it's called the Ministry of Love, is the place that they go to get tortured. We never see Julia get tortured. We just see Winston get tortured. But it's this like 25 or 30 minute scene of O'Brien just torturing Winston. And it's kind of difficult to get through.
No, it's absolutely, I mean, it's a slog, but I mean, a meaningful one. I think.
Oh, for sure.
I think there is a lot of detail in it. I mean, it is one of those things that as a film, now one I want to watch again, I think.
As the like movie went on, I was taking less and less notes just because I was like, I've said that this is, just what's happening in modern life too many times. I don't really have more things to say. Then there's just a half-hour torture scene. And my second to last note of the movie was just, this movie's a fucking bummer. Not only is it O'Brien, like, talking to Winston about, like, he is Goldstein. He wrote the manifesto and kind of revealing that all of it is just a trap for people, but also talking to Winston about the status of power, how they need to view the world, but sometimes kind of cradling him, like creating this weird back and forth. Like there's one scene where Winston and O'Brien are just hugging for like 3 minutes before it goes back to torture.
Well, and then there's several moments where they're in what would be his imagined world of the room 101, where he assumes, which I think is interesting. Like, I guess going back to that cyclical idea is how many times Winston has been in this place. Like, I mean, in the past, like how many times he's gone through.
It's not his first time there, and there's some
absolutely not.
Yeah, I don't know if in the book we ever get more background to that or not, but like one of the biggest parts of Winston's backstory that we kind of get revealed near the end is that his mother and sister, I think back like when maybe not the original war that put Ingsoc into power, but like something of that nature. Like his mother and his sister were eating a chocolate bar, and he found them and couldn't control himself, and he takes the chocolate bar, he runs away. And then when he comes back, they're both gone, and he finds his mother's body later just being devoured by rats.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think the implication is that like Winston did this, like, I don't know if it's psychological repression or something before, and that's why he knows about Room 101. Or maybe that's like an injected thought that they have, I guess, incepted for these people in the same way that people kind of know about, like, oh, there's torture rooms at the Pentagon or something. It's like, it's stuff that's kind of hush-hushed or talked about in myths.
But just the implication that anytime he's been in serious pain, he always is able to kind of go to that place. That's a place that he's created for himself. And that is always, that place is always followed by at least some connection to the past in some way. And so, like you're saying, it could be that, I think all of those moments, as we understand them, like all of the moments in the wartime, I think are real. I think those are all sincere moments, because I think those are the ones that are the most dangerous. So there's an implication that there is like a time without war, or a time between war, or a time when Big Brother was not always there or was always watching.
We should probably talk about, because that's like the big, I guess, recurring piece of dialogue throughout the torture scene is like, there's something that Winston writes in his journal earlier, that freedom is the freedom to say that 2 + 2 = 4. And O'Brien keeps bringing that back up in the torture scenes, where he holds up 4 fingers and he wants Winston to tell him how many he's holding up. And initially he says 4 and he gets tortured. Then he says 5, but he doesn't believe it and he gets tortured. And it keeps going until like the pain is so bad that he is seeing double on the fingers. And it's not that the answer was 4 or 5. The answer is he doesn't know. And he needs Winston to tell, or he needs O'Brien to tell him how many fingers he's holding up, which is the entire strategy of their power. They want the citizens to not know and need to be taught what to think.
Yes.
Cool.
No, I know. I was in agreement.
You're good.
You were just, I didn't have anything to share because I think you got it. I mean, I think
the torture scene is like this completion of a bunch of different running themes
ideas
throughout the movie. The 2 + 2 thing, wearing Winston down.
One of the things that stuck with me is the implication of just how much Julia still appears in these moments with O'Brien. Whether that be when it's supposed to be love between O'Brien and Winston, but I mean, like, Julia's still coming up in his brain. Julia's still there beyond the rat cage in front of him. I mean,
well, that's the last thing that they need to get out of him. That is the last thing that he's holding on to, is that he loves Julia, and she's the one piece of real human connection that he has. And no matter what they do, they can't seem to get him rid of that, because he makes a promise to her that like he'll always love her and he'll always remember her. They wear him down physically, they wear him down mentally, but he still has that there. And there's like one of the worst things in this whole fucking movie where O'Brien is telling him that he's wasting away, and he just fucking pulls out one of his teeth as if it's nothing.
Oh yeah.
And I hated that. That fucking sucked. But that also happens right after this big monologue that O'Brien gives, where it's like, there is no loyalty except loyalty to the party. If you want a vision of the future, imagine a boot stamping on a human face. Power is making people suffer. It doesn't mean anything past that. It is just oppression. And that's also when we get the Big Brother mention, the only one in the movie, as far as I can remember, where O'Brien wants Winston to ask the question that's on his head, and he says, is Big Brother real? And it doesn't matter what the answer is. We never see Big Brother move. He's just like a JPEG on a screen the entire time, just staring out at people.
Do you think it's like a JPEG 2000 or like a...
Nah, that's
like
a JPEG
PNG?
XL on a screen that big.
Maybe it's an SVG.
Might be a TIFF or a DNG. Who knows?
Yeah.
Do you think... I think they had Photoshop back then. I think Adobe is authoritarian enough that there 100% was a Photoshop contract for Inksosh at that time. Like, those newsreels 100% were edited in Premiere. I could see it. But like, it doesn't matter the answer if Big Brother's real or not. Because all that matters is that the people in power are going to stay in power, and the individual has no power against it. But that's the one slight bit of hope in this movie, is that Inksosh is scared, because they know that if people were to band together, if they saw the reality of it, they would never allow this stuff to happen.
It's interesting because it's like there is there's always this underlying humanity that I think both John Hurt is supposed to be able to convey, both as the actor, but just, I mean, the continual holding on to both his love, but also, I mean, just the courage to continually come back to, or at least hold internally, the truth, or at least some portion of it.
They finally break Winston down when they bring him to room 101. O'Brien says, "You asked me once what was in room 101. I told you that you knew the answer already. The thing that is in room 101 is the worst thing in the world," which I think is taken directly from the book.
That affected me so much. Winston is brought into this room, and it's kind of conveyed from O'Brien, something that's going to be chained to his head or attached or some surgical equipment. A bag is placed by a doctor, and O'Brien just kind of says, like, everyone has their own room 101. I think that core idea of it being like your own personal fear. We understand what makes you. That's
like the most oppressive that they get, is like they know your nightmare.
Absolutely, and that's something what's interesting is that I don't think Julia is ever told specifically about the rats, and it's 2 rats. They open this bag. It's 2 rats that are festering over each other, who have not eaten it at all, and it's literally a muzzle that's being placed on him. And it's something I considered in the moment. I'm like, damn, they really are fucking having these rats go at it.
Oh, those rats were fighting. Like, that's, I don't know how you would fake that.
There's no other way. Yeah, no. You just had to shoot it, and it was, I mean, it's intense.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Really, I mean,
O'Brien is like calmly talking to Winston about the process that he's going to take of like bringing the rats closer and closer to his face before opening this last little door on the cage, and they're going to eat his eyes and then his brain and like everything. And it's that thing that finally gets Winston to break down entirely and like give up Julia and like say he will do anything they want as long as they make this happen to her instead of him. From what we see, the same thing happens to Julia, because they meet at this bar, this place where he had seen other people like this before earlier in the movie, and they talk to each other very like passively, that they like gave each other up, but they still want to see each other again, and then she leaves.
And we see him, I mean, kind of hearing his own confessions of the crimes that he didn't commit, but
the same confessions that Goldstein had at the beginning.
And he's writing in the dust that's on the chessboard that he's playing right before. It's like 2 plus 2, and then I love that little moment where he moves the rook, which the knight. And there's something about that, I don't know, just a little moment. It's got that little, I don't know, it's that Inception kind of ending.
A little twist of the knife.
Well, I wouldn't say twist of the knife. Just the implication to me is that he knows, like that he lost it.
I don't know if he knows. I think he's like broken down enough where he doesn't have an answer to it anymore.
So here's my film analysis of the scene.
Yeah.
So basically, when she comes in, he's playing chess with himself, and the only thing that he really says to her outside of like his own part of the chess is that he's discussing how you need to outmaneuver them. And it's sort of implied that he's talking about like, oh, this horrible thing that's happening with like the battle that's happening in Eurasia or whatever. But then he moves the knight back to position.
Interesting.
And I always took that as 4 because it's 4 places that you're moving. And so basically when he says 2 plus 2, so he still holds in his head that he knows it's 4.
Maybe there's hope
he can't
there.
say it maybe out loud. Yeah, I see hope in that ending. It's not hopeful. I mean, in the sense that like, yeah, this world's fucked. No, it's not getting better.
Does make
but
sense.
It can't be taken away, I guess, that humanity.
That does make sense, because like the very last bits of the movie are that like he's watching like his crimes get confessed on the television, and then it goes back to an image of Big Brother, and he turns away and starts to cry, and then I don't think he says it out loud, but it's a voiceover, and then we just hear "I love you," and then the movie ends and Jacob gets really sad. So I mean, I think that hopeful reading of it does make some sense. I was just like, damn, they really took everything from him.
They done got him. It's almost this balance that this ideology or this party is having to deal with the people, is they kind of know there is really no end game to this. This is, I mean, the power we have is as much as we can continually impound it over people. I mean, that's why the war can never end. I mean, that's the only way that the society can stay intact. I feel like this like sentiment is something you can like cross through, like, I mean the Cold War and the fascist need to like basically be a suicide cult, because you're just continually finding a new outgroup that you can, then once that's gone, well, you find the next outgroup, and it eventually becomes your own folks. Like it becomes your own people.
And that's where the movie ends. The movie is
Yes,
just
exactly.
like, hey, do you have faith in the world? No. Bye-bye.
Nick said, it's hopeful. I mean, it reminded me so much, and I mean, I'm sure that like this was immediate parallel they were going for, but like Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, it left me in a very similar emotional place where,
Mhm.
I mean, just the fact that like these two will find each other again, there is nothing they can do unless they kill them, which I mean, in a certain sense, they don't want to, because it almost is kind of forsaking their ideology to say that we can't stop them from doing this. Because you don't have real power if you have to kill them, in a sense. I mean, I guess I was just happy to be out of the rat scene. That was a lot.
I think, like you do, that like he's saying he loves Julia, those last couple lines, but in the book, I remember being pretty clear, like, it's Big Brother. Like, he is fully turned over. He's gone. It would be interesting if the movie, like, that's been so dark and dreary this whole time does end with a little bit more hope. But I think that that's a nice way to look at it. In terms of production, because we've talked about the movie a lot, how much do you know about...
Give me some...
Well, because there's a very telling title card in the credits that says the movie was photographed in and around London during the period of April to June 1984, the exact time and setting imagined by Orwell, which I can't help but thinking that's like a comment about the state of England at the time, because there's so many areas in here that just look fucking awful.
London in the, I mean, this is more England, I think, in the late 80s. Both it was like the hitting of austerity, and then also just like it was. I mean, I know that like the city of London almost I think went bankrupt in like I think 1987.
Interesting,
and it really does have. That's how it did look, and there was a lot of social upheaval because it's like, holy fuck, this is brutal.
Damn. There's also quite a bit of, I don't know if it's controversy necessarily, but there's a lot of discussion on the music, which I know you said you hadn't looked into this a lot, but. No. The music, did you get like a very orchestral score or a synthy score when you watched it?
I believe orchestral.
Orchestral. Okay, so that is there's two people credited for the music on this movie, Dominic Muldowney and the Eurythmics, who the Eurythmics did the song Sweet Dreams Are Made of This. What happened with the release of the movie is that Muldowney did record a score for it that Michael Radford, the director, approved. And then Virgin Films, run by Richard Branson, like the Virgin Mobile guy who funded the movie, didn't like it. And so they had final cut privilege. And like right before the movie release, we're just going to hire the Eurythmics because we want something more poppy. We want something that's more 80s. And then when it started to come out for home releases, they switched it back to Dominic Muldowney's score because that's the one that Radford wanted. The Criterion release has both of them. And I only wanted to watch this movie once. It's so depressing. So I watched it with Muldowney's score, but I went on YouTube and I listened to the Eurythmic score, and it is very synthy and poppy, and would have given it a significantly different vibe. Like I think it's only about 20 minutes of score.
I mean, because the film itself, I mean, like I don't really remember a whole lot. I mean, like I think like it was poignant in moments, but then so I was gonna say I was like I think what it was there I think complemented it well, and it wasn't
where I felt afterwards was like. It would go so much in opposition to the vibes of the movie, which are so overbearing and kind of 40s-ish. Like it looks like a war film. But that might also kind of further the themes of it, where it's like what you're being told and what you're seeing are two different things.
Films can definitely have different lives, but I think it's interesting when it's sort of like, well, here's the distinction of when the film becomes right.
With that in mind, I would recommend like going to listen to at least a little bit of the score, because what I kind of felt like as the movie would get darker near the end of it, the score, the Eurythmics one, got a lot more machine-y.
Oh, interesting. That'd be cool.
And I almost kind of felt like that would fit better during the torture scene. My opinion about the Muldowney score, even though I think it fit the movie a little bit better, it didn't have a lot of mystery or ambience to it. And I think that there's probably a mixture of the two scores. Obviously, I think that the Muldowney one is probably like the quote unquote correct one to listen to, just because that's what the director intended. And he didn't get approval on the Eurythmic score. That was fully just a studio thing where they're like, yep, that's in there now. Fuck you. It's interesting. And I like that on the Criterion one, at least, it does have both versions so you can listen and judge for yourself.
I like that.
But yeah, what are your closing thoughts about this movie? Because there's a lot in here.
Often it's incredibly hard to capture films and stories, at least in a review sense or a retrospective sense, that are so well known. I kept feeling myself being like do we want to go into it? Like, I feel like everyone kind of knows. Like, not something to say that it's bad, but it's sort of like you want to feel like you want to cover everything because I think it's so influential. And at least I felt that way in a way that, like, when I was going through Make Way for Tomorrow, it was sort of like it's all new, at least in my opinion, because it's just difficult to capture these in a good like way because it's just been so talked about. It's gonna be the unsatisfactory one, or at least my brain. Like it's I mean, it's like 1984. It's like being like, have you guys considered what the Bible's about? Like it's like, like it's like I love the film. I don't want to watch it for 20 years, but when I do, I'll probably watch it with the new score.
My thoughts about it were like, I know the book meant a whole lot. I was trying to think of like what came first. Was it the Orwellian stuff or all of this in popular culture? Did that come from the book making a big splash or the movie? And I think it was the book. But the movie, even if it wasn't a great adaptation of the book, from some people's perspective, a lot of the reviews that I was reading about it say that the book is better universally, and that might be true. But it gives visuals to something that makes them a little more objective instead of subjective. And that's good and bad. Like, having
these aesthetics are so drilled into, like, when we think of like dystopian, authoritarian,
that one still image of Big Brother. Like,
yes,
all of that stuff is, I would say, as much a part of the book as 2 + 2 = 5 and thought crime. So even if it doesn't eclipse the book, I think it helps make it much more visible in the sense that it literally gives it visuals.
It's like these are the visuals that'll be shared or referenced. Like, it's like if you want to evoke that feeling or do a really shitty like red pill like reaction to like a woman having opinions about misogyny, you'll be like, this is 1984.
I think, like, I don't know, I was trying to think of who I would recommend this movie to. There were a lot of dystopian movies in the 2010s. Yes. Hunger Games, Maze Runner, Divergent, all of these things that were kind of capitalizing on the YA craze for it. And I think this is a movie that people who were into those should watch, not because those franchises are bad, but I think because it has much more meaning in it than those did. Like this one comes from a place of, post World War II paranoia and fear and anger, and I don't get the same sense from something like The Hunger Games. So if someone really likes dystopian stuff and wants a movie to really just fuck up your mood for the day, this is something I think is worth watching.
It's interesting to see how that era of storytelling reflects and differentiates itself, because there are just ideas that are also just so of its era too, because there are things that don't really, for as much as they seem similar to today, I still contend that like 1984 is very set in its time. It had its own context, and he's writing against things that are like literally happening to him, whereas we're relating it back to a time when, like, as my professors in school would often be like the past is a different country. Like it's like you just don't have the same context and those same tools. But I mean, the fact that we still continually evoke it, I think, means that we still are as worried about what it evoked, or even the things we think it evokes, as we did back then. I bid you adieu.
I mean, I think that's as good of a place to move on to our third and final movie, which is The Secret of the Grain from 2007, Spy Number 527, directed by Abdelatif Kechiche. This one kind of caught me by surprise. I don't know about you, Nick.
This one, this is a good movie. This is what you call in the business a good movie, a great movie. I love this movie. I think this is like genuinely one of my favorite things I've seen all year. Year's just started, but I just obsessed a little bit. But yeah, go ahead.
It was something. So we can talk about the plot in like a second, but it was one where I think both of us kind of like started watching it and then kind of had a difficult time acclimating to. It was very, not to bring film school into it, it was very like cinema verite, kind of authentic and not cinematic for a lot of it. I think that, plus it being a little bit slow in the beginning, plus it being a foreign film. So we have to like really kind of lock in.
Yes, I mean, and I needed to have. I'm glad I took the time to take a second from it, because this is a film that like is really rewards you if you pay attention.
It's a big family drama, and just coming with the territory, there are a lot of characters, and you're kind of you're getting introduced to them all very quickly, because the movie starts with a series of vignettes of the children around the city and the patriarch dealing with his employment and going to visit all of them. And so you're getting introduced to a lot of different relationships and several different characters, one after the other, before the real plot starts to materialize.
And I love, I mean, like, even when it's starting up, you have like replayability because there's so many of these like little moments. And like, even just in my memory, like thinking about the opening, there's so many little details that are just coming to my mind. Every moment is a character moment. And regardless of like what any character is doing, like you have better context of where they fit in the family. And it is something where it is slow, but then you're like, oh, this is all adding to something.
Well, let's talk about those characters and just an overview of the movie. So the movie centers around Slimane, who is, I want to say, Tunisian immigrant living in France who has this gigantic family. And the movie starts with him getting laid off from his job restoring ships at a shipyard. I don't know what the like inciting point for it is. I might have turned away whenever this happened, but he eventually decides to take his severance and his savings and open up a restaurant on a boat. And in opening up that restaurant, he wants to like use his family's cooking, his ex-wife's recipe, but there's also all of these different interconnecting dynamics between his children and each other, him and his children, him and his new partner, and kind of not adopted daughter, but how would you characterize his relationship with Rhyme, who is kind of the secondary protagonist? I mean, the deuteragonist, if we're being
the
textbook about it.
But I definitely would agree. I mean, she's like kind of the co-anchor of this film, and I would say that she was in some ways like found family in some ways, but I would say adoptive daughter. I mean, it is made very clear that like Salim's relationship to Reem's mom is not marriage. It's they're going out, they're close. He lives in the hotel that she owns. But it was interesting getting a sense of like also just the cultural touchstones of France too, because I'm like thinking, is hotel mean the same thing? Like is this like hostel in the same way? Like he's living in a small apartment, there's several different older gentlemen here.
Yeah.
So
I was thinking the same thing, and that was something that stuck out to me at the beginning. Was just there's so much history and age apparent in all of this stuff.
Yeah,
and I think part of that is that it's. I said it's a very authentic movie, but like every building looks like they just shot it at a real place. I would be surprised if there's any actual sets used in the movie aside from maybe this restaurant near the end, just because of how much time they spend in it. It's a very realistic depiction of France, and it's or at least the kind of Tunisian immigrant area of France. I don't know if they say is it Set, the city that they're in? Seta?
I actually don't know. It's in southern France. Like there's little touchstones, and even just the fact that we start on Majid, the eldest son of Slimane, Suleiman, thank you. Where like the fact that it's a tourist destination.
Slimane has a large family, and we're introduced to them all one after the other. Majid is his oldest son, who's also he's married to a Russian immigrant, but he's also cheating on her with
frame one.
I think like a politician's wife. His wife Julia also has her brother in town whose name is Sergey. But there is also another side of Slimane's family, his ex-wife Suad, his other daughter Karima. There's also Ulfa, the youngest of all of the children, all of Slimane's children.
I believe so. It's hard to say because of just, there are definitely...
There's not a lot of exposition in it. Like you're just kind of put in the center.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that's almost what's fun is that there is no like, there's never that moment of like, your brother.
Your brother, like, who is 12 years old, who we love. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
And then there's also Riyadh, who is the youngest son for sure.
Yes.
And kind of has a crush on Rhyme, who is Latifa's daughter, and Latifa is Slimane's, I guess, long-term partner. Which, like, it really hammers in that the beginning of this movie, it is a family movie that really lives and dies over how realistic that family is depicted. And I think it really knocks it out of the park in that sense.
No, absolutely. I mean, I think that like, I mean, one thing that's interesting when you say like it's not big, but it's like this movie felt big in the sense that like whether or not this dish is working, like if the couscous is going to make it to his restaurant later is like literally like a ticking time bomb. Like I felt so much more intensity, if anything,
There was a
watching
lot
this
of
than I
tension
did
near the
watching
end.
1984.
I was starting to get really nervous.
Yeah, so nervous.
That's the second big thing in the movie, is that food plays a humongous, like this is a food movie. I would say almost more so than it is a family movie. We see so many sequences of people eating. The entire climax is set in this restaurant that Slimane builds into a boat that he decides to renovate. Food is like one of the first things that we see Slimane deal with, is that he gets these fish and is trying to give them to people in his family, and some of them are like, oh, we have fish all the time.
Yes.
Karima works at a tuna cannery, so she's like around fish all day.
Literally.
Suad doesn't want it because her freezer is full of this fish that Slimane keeps bringing her.
Oh,
And it ends with
it's
him.
so real.
Yeah. And it ends with him taking it to Latifa's hotel, and he brings it to Rhyme, and she's like, oh, I haven't had fish in so long. Thank you. And we get like the first kind of bit of acceptance of him and what he's trying to do.
Well, and that's such an interesting point. I mean, one thing I will sit with for a second is just the fact of like, I worked briefly like at a egg packing factory, and like there's something but it like there is something about like the fact that literally the pay isn't great, but you were literally been bombarded by like free product, but you just you're so everyone in your life is I gave out eggs to everybody. Every egg product I could do, and that's all I ate for a while, like right out of college.
Nowadays that's like spinning gold.
Well, that's so funny. Yeah, like it was literally right before everything got crazy, or I guess got crazy again, I guess again with inflation and everything. But I just felt that Slimane wants to provide. Like there's this tangible feeling of like, firstly, I'm getting the raw end of the stick, but he's most worried about the fact that, I mean, the first thing that his ex-wife says to him is, you missed 2 alimony payments. Like, it's like, that's literally, it's like, you do nothing. Like and he feels it. I mean, it's something that I think permeates the whole movie, is this feeling of that like, I'm not where I need to be. It's not where I want to be. And he's so conscious of the entire family. I mean, he's so quiet, but he's so,
We get introduced to him as he's getting chewed out by the shipyard foreman.
Yes. Yeah.
And the whole conversation is basically trying to kindly say to Slimane, like, we know you've worked here for 35 years or something.
35 years.
But you gotta go. You're not following the rules with the hours. You're not completing jobs on time. You need to get out of here.
And such a big piece of that moment too is just the fact, which I mean, I think will kind of follows him throughout the rest of the movie, is that I believe like 15 years of it is basically off the books before he was able to either get his citizenship outright, or that was just the way he could get into the job in the first place. He should be getting retirement. He should be getting his pension, and they know that, but they're not willing to spend the money or actually do any of like the legwork. I mean, it's clear. I mean, this guy, everyone knows him. It's like they're all clearly like respect him, love him.
It's a tight-knit community, and that's, I guess, the tertiary theme of the movie. It's like food, family, community. And there's a lot of times that we see how quickly news travels around people there. Like everyone except for Julia kind of knows that Majid is unfaithful. Whenever Slimane hits a wall when he's trying to get funding for this restaurant he wants to start, there's this group of musicians that stays at Latifa's hotel that kind of immediately know about it. And
are all like, I mean, just swapping their opinions, but they also immediately will lock in to help out. Like when it actually the actual chips are down, absolutely. But I feel like that's such a family thing that this it can turn on a dime where it's like
found family versus I guess biological family.
I want to talk about the potty training scene so much because it's so fucking cute. But
Nick,
also
you
like,
talk about the potty training scene. Go
it's
with
so
God
cute,
and talk
dude.
about the potty training scene.
I think this is, I mean, firstly, Slimane's, we just see how he is as like a father. And finally he gets over there and his daughter can,
Karima.
Like literally thank you. Is literally showering him with compliments.
His granddaughter, like he goes over to Karima's house to try and give her and her husband some of this fish. He's just walking around town with a cooler full of fish. And she's like yelling at her daughter because her daughter said she didn't have to go to the bathroom, and then I think peed in her diaper. And it's funny because this whole scene, Karima's like just showering Slimane with compliments while also then turning around and yelling at her daughter. In a very like loving kind of playful way, but at the same time like that kind of strict, do that again and I will smack you. You'll be out on the street. I love you so dearly and so much.
That dynamic is so funny to me. Like where she's just like, you little shit. If you weren't in his arms, Slimane's, I feel like his best characteristic, but also I think probably his big failing is that he like can't do conflict, and he wants to resolve the situation. He doesn't want to say anything. He just picks her up. He's like, no, it's okay. Like, I've got her. He doesn't even want coffee. He just wants to sit with his grandkid.
And I think that's an interesting way to look at it, because most of the movie is him kind of taking conflict on the chin. He gets laid off from work. He's like,
yeah,
damn, that sucks. I'm gonna go give these fish to my family. He sees that conflict at Karima's house. He's like, damn, that sucks. I'm going to hold my granddaughter and tell her it's okay to piss in a diaper.
Yes, exactly.
He keeps running up against, like, they go later in the movie when he's trying to get this funding for his restaurant.
Yeah.
Him and Rhyme go to a bank, and the bank tells them, there's no way we can approve a loan for you. The boat is in terrible condition.
Yes.
You don't have any
literally
of the,
a scrap heap that he like got for free.
You don't have any of the necessary permits from the city. You don't have like a locked in area to, I guess, dock the boat. And he goes, okay, we'll deal with that. And then he goes to the city to try and get permits. And the city's like, well, actually, no, you need this other approval.
You need the bank loan.
Yeah, you need the bank loan, but then also this other approval. He goes to this third place, and they're like, okay, well, great. So you just need the bank and the city's approval. And throughout the whole time, he's just kind of wears the same expression on his face, which is just age and tiredness.
It's sort of like a quiet acceptance. Like, there's also Majid and then his youngest son. They're all both telling him to like go back to the old country, and like it's in front of Reem, basically his adopted daughter. And there's sort of this like tension where he kind of accepts it, but he's not accepting it. Like he just wants it to stop. Like
he's just kind of allowing it to happen and not really listening. He's just eating his couscous and fish.
Yeah, which I would do the same with.
Which worth noting that like The Secret of the Grain is the English title, I guess the American title, but in France it's called I'm gonna butcher this. La graine et la moule. So the grain and the mullet, which the mullet is like the main fish that they catch in the area. And in the UK, it was titled Couscous. So Secret of the Grain is kind of a more, I guess, mysterious title that we get here in America. But it's much more literal in other countries. Yeah.
That actually makes so much more sense, because I was like, I don't dislike the title. It's literally
The Grain doesn't really have a secret. They cook couscous.
There is no. I think that like it's like engaging with that scene again with the pie training one. What did you think of the conversation, like kind of back and forth?
I was seeing it as the difference in age and experience. Like Karima has a, I guess, more stable job, because she's talking about
kind of her argument is that like, no, if we all stand together, they literally can't do anything to us. Then there's just like Salim in the middle just saying nothing.
Yeah. Simon's just kind of there holding his granddaughter, just being like, all right, that's cool for you guys. I'm glad that you still have
exactly.
work.
It's so clear. Like it definitely is a generational gap. 15 years prior, I mean, or probably 30 years prior, that's how their family came here. They were migrants. So it's like there is that like distinction where it's like, oh well, we've acculturated ourselves. We're different.
Well, that's something that keeps popping up is like how, I guess, ingrained in the French side of the community these people are, because the Tunisian side of it, or I guess the Arabic side that we see, are very close with each other, but the more that they start to branch out into the, I guess, native French side, or at least like the white side of their community,
I think that's
they start to brush up against it. There's a few little bits in the movie that stuck out to me, like when Slimane and Rhyme are talking to the bank for a loan. Maybe it was this scene. It might be one of the other governmental bodies they talk to. But I'm pretty sure this woman is like, oh, if you were trying to build a mosque, this would be a different story.
Yes.
That someone is like, oh, if you restaurant is crazy to build in France. There's so many restaurants here. The community,
absolutely,
like all these restaurateurs are very elitist. But if you were trying to do something that was distinctly more Arab, well, that'd be fine.
She mentions that it would at least be distinct. Like this would be, like a couscous place would be distinct, and it would be something where people would come. And that's sort of also their kind of selling point. To her.
And near the end, when so what happens as the movie goes on is that Slimane restores the boat himself with the help of Riyadh, his youngest son, and then invites, I guess, investors and bigwigs in the community and some government people. I guess bureaucrats is the right way to say it.
I think they probably specify, because it's like they're all within different professions in some ways, but they're all. What's interesting is they all sit together. They all sit together. Friends, they all know each other.
And while this is happening, it keeps kind of cutting back to some of the restaurateurs, and they're always being like, "No one's gonna get couscous around here." And then as they start to have some of the appetizers, their conversation shifts to, oh, this could be really
We're
bad
fucked.
for us. Yeah. No one can beat them at this price. No one can beat them at this quality for this food. And they're right.
No one is also reaching out to this community that clearly lives here, clearly is like a part of it, but nobody is like catering to their cultural identity or their cultural background or trying to make food for them.
Well, and despite like having that divide, they are still very clearly a part of the community. Like you said, people
Yeah,
know
sure.
Slimane, and there's also Suad has a tradition of the poor man's plate. Like whenever they make a big plate of food, she wants to go give a plate to someone who's less fortunate than them, even though they're not necessarily living in luxury. And when she does end up doing that near the end of the movie, it takes her a while to find this unhoused person that she knows. And when she goes up to him, he's like, hello. And she goes, you're not at your usual spot. So like they are, I don't know if they're pillars of their community necessarily, but they are part of it for sure. They're not on the outskirts looking in. They're just ignored by the upper class, I guess.
And it shows, I mean, also just for her in general, I think there's different points that you kind of get like this more, I guess I want to say rough exterior, but maybe more confrontational when you really see her, I guess, away from her family and like in a totally different situation. And even just the fact that like she's frustrated with a lot of what is kind of occurring around her, or maybe like some of the shortcomings of her family. It's like the fact that she's willing to help out in this way, I think it showcases so much of her character, I guess, like her compassion or willingness to step up.
We're introduced to Suad in, I think, a scene that doesn't paint her in the best light. Like, Slimane was just laid off. He goes over there to try and bring her food. The very first thing she does is yell at him to take his shoes off, tell him that he's missing his alimony, and then say, like, I don't want your fish. You keep bringing over fish. I don't have any room for fish. But then throughout the rest of the movie, it keeps showing how charitable she is. I guess the power that she wields in the family as the de facto leader of it. Slimane is the patriarch for sure, but he's not as ingrained because he's not married to Suad. I think a few of them live in the same building while he lives in the hotel with Rhyme and Latifah, who have clearly caused some divide by just being in Slimane's life. But Suad cooks this gigantic dinner for the family. There's so much love and laughter in this scene where they're all eating. She gives that food to the homeless person, and she's even charitable in some negative ways. Majid takes calls from his mistresses at Suad's house, and she fields the calls for him. And we find that out when Julia, Ulfa, Karima, and Suad, all of the women of the family, are prepping food for the restaurant for dinner at the opening night thing, or I guess at the party that Slimane is throwing. And Julia answers a call from unnamed mistress, who we're not sure what her name is.
Well, I think it's even a third person.
Is
I think
it?
It's not even.
I didn't get that from it, but it might have been. Yeah, that makes sense.
Because it definitely was not that Madeline or the name they gave in the party. So I think he's definitely been sleeping around a lot. But even just like you're saying,
she's kind of
she's put people outside of the family. She's put up borders, and Julia is definitely not in the border.
No, Julia feels very she's distinctly separated from the family in the same, not in the same way, but in a very similar way to how Latifah feels, where Latifah is so staunchly against going to this event to support Slimane, even though Rhyme desperately wants to go. There's a very good monologue that Rhyme gives to her near like the climax of the movie, where she's just saying like, it's so childish of you to not go. You are most of it is about Latifah's appearance, which I can give or take that being the thing that brings her there. But she's like, you're so pretty. You're so much more talented than her. You just don't care about Slimane. But Latifah is threatened by Suad, and she knows that she's going to go in there and get all these looks, even though Majid and Riyadh, and I think a few of the other ones, are pretty okay with Rhyme. I mean, Riyadh very clearly has a crush on Rhyme.
Well, let's get into that, because I think that's an interesting. Firstly, let me get a sense of how you felt about Rhyme as a character, because I love
Rhyme as a character is so well done in this movie, because she's very adult. She is the one who's like putting on business suits and going with Slimane to all the government buildings to try and get this approval. She's the one who puts together the project proposal. Yeah. She is also the mediator between him and Latifah, and I think the one who really pushes him to do the things he wants to do, while also like supporting him in other ways. She goes to the musicians and convinces them to help out with the opening night thing. And then we haven't really talked about the climax of the movie, but she is the one who saves the day at the end of it.
I think too is that just her relationship with Sleeman and her mother, like she's kind of in between it, and it's so clear to me that her mother is just already kind of over it in some ways. She's kind of in the middle of this daughter-father relationship in a way too.
Her and Sleeman are like a very firm father-daughter relationship, but
absolutely,
at least I can't remember if we see that much of Sleeman directly interacting with Latifah.
They're basically the only scene they have together is when he
brings the fish, right?
Well, he brings the fish. They have like maybe some glances in the hotel, and then they have their like failed sex scene. That basically,
right?
That, in some ways, I think like you were asking earlier, like what is sort of the inciting incident, and in some ways it could be just the fact that like he gets fired, but I think it's also the fact that like
then he can't get fired up.
He can't get fired up, but I think it's actually true. I mean, but I think it literally is like tied so much. He has it ingrained in his brain that he's not a provider in the way that he wants to. And like it literally is affecting his own way of seeing the relationship. I think what's interesting too is as soon as he leaves that moment initially before they kind of interact again is when he's in the hallway between his room and Reem's mother's room as she turns back to see Reem sleeping. And I think like he pauses for a moment. And I think that is sort of, I don't know, in some ways it's clear that like the mother is I want to say secondary, but it's
Rhyme is his daughter, in some ways, at least from what we see. Rhyme is his daughter much more than Latifah is his partner.
Yes, that's a great way of saying it.
Hey, thanks, man.
Yeah. But when I think that it goes into kind of what we were talking about before is sort of this kind of insider-outsider thing, because Reem, clearly the rest of the family does not like her.
Other than Riyadh.
The old men like her. Other than Riyadh, Karima almost immediately. The first interaction we even have with them, she kind of gives like kind of a passing thing. And if anything, I almost thought like, is Reem kind of reading too much into this?
When Rhyme and Latifah show up at the restaurant.
Thank you. They walk in and Karima kind of gives them like a passing thing. Like, and even her words are interesting because Reem asks like, is there anything I can help out? And she's like, we'll let you know if we need your help or if we need you. As soon as those two are set to their table, she says, bitches, I can't stand them.
And that's also the difference is like all of Sleeman's biological daughters kind of see Rhyme as a child, but then you see how the musicians and how some of the other people in the community treat her, and they treat her like an adult. And I think the very end of the movie is kind of a response to both of those, which what ends up happening is Sleeman and his family cook all this food and open up the restaurant for, I guess, an industry night is what you could call it. They invite all these people to it, and Suad is doing all the cooking in her apartment. Riyadh and Majid go to pick up the food, and they put it in the back of Majid's car. They take it over to the boat and start unloading things, but then Majid sees this person that he was cheating on at the beginning of the movie there in the restaurant. Majid sees her there and then freaks out, and he tells Riyadh, like, if anyone asks, say I went to go help my friend who has a flat tire on the highway. I'll be back in 3 hours or so. And he bolts, but he takes the couscous with him in the back of his car. As the people in the restaurant start to get more and more restless because they've been there for like 2 or 3 hours and just had appetizers, the family starts to panic and they start to split off. Sleeman goes to Suad's apartment to ask her to make more, and they say that's going to take at least an hour. The problem being that Suad is not in the apartment because she goes to find a homeless man to give him some food. I think by that point, Rhyme and Latifah are either there or just about to show up. Karima and Ulfa, they start serving alcohol to people and trying to help them relax a little bit. But that's where the tension starts to rise.
I mean, even when they're like first moving it into Riyadh's car, the back of his car, it's like literally, I'm like, do not fucking drop this. Please don't drop this.
There's some misdirects in how that goes because Ulfa and Karima are lifting like this gigantic cauldron of sauce up onto the stove, and they slip and drop it for a second, and you think like, oh no, everything is going to be ruined, but they just start laughing and they clean it up. They start joking around.
Well, earlier the health inspector made it very clear, like, it needs to be perfect, it needs to be very clean. And she comes earlier in the night, and all these things kept going in my mind, but it really is just Riyadh who literally ruins almost ruins the entire night.
Or
Just
you mean
wanting us to
Majid?
self-preserve. Majid, thank you.
A lot of names, a lot of characters in this movie. Riyadh does cover for Majid, and he sticks to his lie, even though I think in the moment he starts to doubt it. It does bring, I guess, Majid's characterization to an apex, because we see Karima fight with him, not earlier, a lot, but earlier in the movie, where she's like, how dare you be doing this? We all know what you're doing. It's kind of an open secret to everyone except for Julia that Majid is sleeping around. And we see the fallout of that when Slimane goes looking for Suad and goes upstairs to Majid and Julia's apartment, where Julia's there with her brother Sergey and their young baby. Scene. And it's this really, really long, kind of full breakdown that the actress who plays Julia, Alice Houry, who is so tremendous in this scene, but it's just a very long bit of her like screaming at Slimane and taking out all this anger.
I think what I also love about this film is they set things in motion like so early, or without you really even knowing that they're being set up. I mean, just the fact that we start with Majid like cheating, like that being the first thing we see, and he's really not in the film all that much.
He doesn't contribute a whole lot, and I think that is part of his character, that he's just kind of there, and yet he's still like Suad does all this stuff for him. His all these people are doing a lot for him, or at least including him in it, and he's just kind of there, and then still goes and
fucks around. Well, and Julia, I mean, like, it's like what she ends up realizing is that like something that she thought was just within her own family is not within her little immediate family. It's actually everyone knows. And that scene, like Sergey, her brother, who's there, who is just so sweet,
very paternal,
and not that, I mean, like, and quiet in a way too. Like, and I think what's interesting is Slimane's the only time Slimane says anything in that scene is to say, don't get heated to Sergey.
There is a parallel there, because Julia and Sergey are both Russian immigrants. That are in that town, that are even further separated from the French community. I mean, I don't think we see Julia ever leave the house necessarily. She's just kind of there taking care of her son. She has no family ties, but like, you would think that this family of immigrants, second generation immigrants, would be more accepting to these people, but there's still, I guess, preconceived notions or prejudices in their head that they're like, it's just some Russian people.
I guess family dinner scene with Suad, it's like they're very accepting of Mario, like the Frenchman who doesn't even want to speak, who is kind of like making fun of Arabic. It's clear that like he's allowed to do that because he's French. There's so many of those little moments, but yeah, I mean, she's just giving it to Slimane because also he's the only one who's there. Like, I mean, literally Majid is just nowhere to be found.
He's fully fucked off. None of the other siblings have even thought to check on them, which kind of mirrors what happens when they're prepping the food, is that like Ulfa and Karima and Suad and one, I know that there's another one who I'm forgetting. There's a lot of people. They're all like having a good time and joking with each other and prepping all this food. And her job is to like peel potatoes in the corner. There's not even a space for her in the kitchen. She is in the other room on her own. No one's talking to her or doing anything. And I mean, that's why she ends up getting the phone, because no one else is there and they can't hear it, because they're all having a laugh and deboning fish. And I'm sure that set smelled fucking gnarly after all that.
It will, as Slimane says, it smells of the sea. It doesn't smell of fish. But regardless, you're completely right.
If that was Julia, a fake fish in that scene, I'll eat a shoe. Like, I don't think any of that was props. I think that was all real food. I don't think
any of it was props. It looks very, very real. There's a very few times where I'm thinking about like, how do they set
the
up
technical
props?
aspects of it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you're just in it. I think the only time I'm really thinking about it was mostly maybe the camera, but it's just mostly because I'm just like, they're really keeping us in the moment.
I had a few notes about that, which in being so authentic, I kept wondering, what are they shooting this on? Because it's a handheld movie. I can't think if there was a single shot on sticks or anything that was more than like a person holding a camera somewhere.
Yeah.
There's some gorgeous wide shots. There's some really good compositions, but for the most part, it's all these like close-ups, single shots, almost a little too close, kind of claustrophobic, very intimate kind of cinematography that is very free-flowing and shaky and natural in a way that the other movies we watched just weren't. This is like almost a documentary in how it's presented.
Yes. It does have like, I think the only time like I felt the cinematography was maybe when Slimane realizes that his motorbike has been stolen by some children hooligans, and it does feel almost like a French comedy, like it's funny and sad,
kind of dark about it. Yeah,
just like,
it's
Inspector
classic
Clouseau-esque.
Well,
He's
yeah,
like,
it's some Looney Tune shit where it's like, so near when Suad goes, or when Slimane goes to Suad's apartment to find her and ask her to start making more couscous, and after this whole run-in with Julia, he leaves to find that his motorbike that he's been riding around town the whole movie has been stolen by some children who keep like waiting for him to catch up to them and then just speeding like a couple 100 feet away. And like it is a Roadrunner bit for sure.
But like the most dark one, like you're saying, because we know that he's
not in good physical health. There's a lot of parts in the movie where someone's like, you can't have sugar. Remember what the doctor said.
And what's interesting is he's never getting mad at the children.
No, he's like,
That's
please,
so
guys.
interesting to me.
He's just exhausted by that point, and he's fully focused on he needs this stuff for the restaurant. My interpretation was at that point he's like, I can't deal with this shit right now. This will be another day type of thing, which I guess is why Julia's so mad, because it always does feel like it's another day type of thing. Whenever
it's another day. Yeah.
I think whenever she like goes to talk to Majid about wanting to do more or like wanting to go out of the house, he's like, fuck it, you know.
Well, and I mean that's a good point too, is that he makes the money, so he's the man kind of thing. He doesn't have to ever be here, he doesn't ever have to see his kids. Slimane says nothing. The entire scene basically. He is very passive.
Which is why the restaurant is, I think why so many people doubt him in doing it, is that all these people know how passive he is, and he keeps his head down. He's like, he works at this shipyard for 35 years. I can't imagine he was trying to do more than that through that time span. And so they're like, this is the first active thing he's doing in a while. We want to support his dream and help him be happy, but we're all kind of surprised that he's doing this.
Well, even Reem says something to her mother, like when she is kind of having that breakdown of why she's not going. This is his most important moment of his life. This is the one time in his life where like, I'm going to make something of myself. I'm going to be the man. But even then, it's like, he still ends up chasing around kids. Like that's the last thing he ends up doing. He's
being forced to be active in a situation that he didn't put himself into.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
The end of the movie is this, I think probably the defining moment of it, just judging by the Criterion cover art. While Slimane is out looking for Suad and then chasing down these thieves that stole his motorbike, and the guests at the restaurant are getting more and more angry with how long it's taking. And Rhyme finally convinces Latifah to go and show up at the restaurant. Like, she's clued into the couscous is gone, something has to be done. And we get this really long belly dancing scene that kind of comes out of left field, but is insane. Like, it is such a singular moment of this movie that has more energy than the rest of it put together. It has this newfound sense of motion and liveliness in the editing. It's basically a music video where it's just Rhyme belly dancing for like a solid 10 or 15 minutes, if not longer.
This might be a weird connection. And I feel this way, I mean, about a lot of, this parts of this movie, but thinking of it in kind of a mirror to like the opening of The Godfather or something, where we kind of see an entire performance. It's not nearly as pivotal, but it's like the family all being around this moment of like performance that's being happening. And I think here what's so captivating about it too is just she almost takes her moment to step out and be the active part of the family and showcase to all the rest of the family that like I am a part of his life and I'm going to be there for him and like I don't know, be that pivotal
piece. The difference between her and Slimane is that like she is the one actively trying to fix things. Even before that, she's the one who tells him he should make a restaurant and goes to put together this project proposal, and she's the one who ends up revitalizing the room and stalling while her mom slips out to go make more couscous. That's one of the last things we see, is that Latifah goes and makes a bunch of couscous and comes back to the boat.
Like, she kind of proves to her mom, Latifah, that if it's not necessarily worth it to Slimane, like her relationship with Slimane, it's worth it to her daughter. Like, this is important to her daughter. Like,
don't do it for any of Slimane's biological family that doesn't like you. Do it for me, or do it for him because you're supposed to love him. Rhyme does this like insane belly dancing sequence that kind of ping pongs between voyeuristic and I guess cultural performance, because there is something to be said about like the stereotypes that the bureaucrats have about the Arabs with the mosque thing, with saying, couscous would never survive in this area, to the solution literally being one of Middle Eastern stereotypes. But it also does solve the problem. All these people that are hungry and drunk and angry fully do a 180.
I think there even are shots of the people who are kind of trying to like figure out the downfall of this restaurant before it even gets off the ground, and they're kind of wooed into silence.
They're hypnotized by it. They're completely fixated.
Yeah.
And I mean, we keep calling it a performance, but if you look at like what Rhyme is doing, I don't know if she's feeling it as a performance. It's just like, this is what she needs to do. The tragedy of it is that while Rhyme is doing that, while Latifah is going to make more couscous to help out, everyone is kind of transfixed by this belly dancing. Slimane is out on the road following these kids around who keep stealing his motorbike. And the very last thing we see, or I guess one of the last things, I don't know if it's Latifah bringing the couscous.
I think it is the
up.
last moment. I think it's the last moment.
Slimane falls to the ground and just stops moving. And then the movie ends and you're like, God damn it. Fuck.
I really like that. I don't. It's a weird thing to say because I think like it's.
It's a great ending.
It is a great ending.
It sucks, but it's a great ending.
It sucks. Like there is something about like he is kind of this tragic character in a way, almost like the embodiment of him brought all these people together that otherwise.
Oh yeah, there was some pessimistic part of me that was like, this does not strike me as a movie with a happy ending, and I was right, and I was mad that I was right.
I like almost like a literal translation of what is happening is like. He literally cannot run after the young anymore. I thought, like, I just kept thinking that.
Sorry, I was yawning, and then you made a really good point. Sorry, let me take that again. Oh yeah.
I want that to be exactly how it is. Thank you.
Fuck.
It's so funny.
I was leaning away from the microphone so I didn't yawn into it, and then you.
But I didn't hear it. Like it was like
my brain was like, oh shit, that's a really good point. I need to react.
I mean, it has that make way for tomorrow kind of feeling too. Is there sort of this inevitability to it?
There's kind of an undercurrent of shame throughout the whole movie. Not like that sounds harsher than it is. Like,
I think that's right. Yeah.
Slimane feels like he needs to provide for his family, and he's ashamed that he can't do it. Latifah is jealous and angry because of Slimane's existing family, and so she is ashamed of that. Rhyme is ashamed of her mom. She wants to do the best she can. Majid is doing something shitty and should feel guilty about it. There's all of this stuff, and Rhyme goes up there and does that dance fully without shame. She is there, she like in the moment, kind of losing herself in it. And I think it's arguably that's more of an ending to the film than Slimane dying, or I guess laying down, not moving. I almost kind of see that as the epilogue.
Going up to the farm upstate.
Yeah. the great shipyard in the sky. You could end it right after the dance is over and have the other stuff just kind of be like left to interpretation. It's just such a good conclusion to the movie that comes out of nowhere.
For her to be on such display and for it to be, I think, as central as it is, I think, I don't know what phrase I'd use to like kind of categorize that, but I think it was meaningful in the sense that it's like, she didn't have to be someone else. She didn't have to, I think sometimes in films.
She didn't like take off her glasses and suddenly she was pretty. Yeah.
That's exactly what I'm trying to get to. Exactly. Yeah. It's literally her just being authentically herself.
Yeah.
But
which
just more.
It plays into how naturalistic the rest of the movie is. Like I said earlier, there's so little hair and makeup work, if any. All these scenes where the family is eating together or prepping fish or something, like all of that, they're really eating. There's food on their faces and in their teeth. They're not all put together like they would be in a contemporary American film. And so the ending kind of both being the most authentic we see a person in the movie, but also the most cinematic the movie feels. It's at odds with itself in the best way.
But in kind of wrapping up our thoughts on the secrets of the grain, I want to ask you that question you asked me. Who would you recommend this to?
Someone who likes the small scale family dramas. We talked about Little Miss Sunshine when we were doing Make Way for Tomorrow, and I think it's in that same vein. A story that is incredibly self-contained on a relatively small scale. Like anyone with a big family, I think, would feel similar to this, because in every big family, it seems like there is kind of a de facto leader. Like anytime that there is a family with that dynamic, it's even harder to break your way into it if you're a newcomer, especially if you are different, like Julia is, or make your way out of it, like Slimane did whenever he and Suad got divorced. I don't know. It's just a good movie. You should watch it.
My immediate thought is kind of going back to that the parallel I saw in like the Godfather films. I think that like in the same way that I think Francis Ford Coppola. God, I hate the fact that I'm using Godfather because it really is a Metropolis moment.
Film, bro.
But I'm using it for good. Yeah, like in the same way that
Godfather for good instead of Godfather Part 2.
But I think Francis Ford Coppola always talked about like inserting those family moments and those very specific Italian cultural touchstones are threaded throughout the entire film. And I think in the same way, the French Arabic motifs and cultural touchstones are threaded through everything, and it like ties everything together. And I think it is so big. I mean, this film is small but big. I don't know. And I hope that anyone who enjoyed the Godfather films or any film that like is in that kind of this canon of American film, I hope they watch this. But that's all I have.
Well, and I think in much the same way that Coppola's family, either he's a second generation Italian immigrant or his parents were.
Second generation, I think.
Abdelatif Kechiche, who directed this movie, is a Tunisian French immigrant. So I think you can tell he also helped write this with Galia Lacroix. I don't know. He co-wrote this with somebody whose name I'm not qualified to pronounce. But I think you can see this is something that he has experienced firsthand. And it makes me very excited to watch another movie he has in the Criterion Collection, which is Blue is the Warmest Color. Which I want to say is... Yeah.
I've not seen that, but
I want to say that's probably really his more famous movie.
Yes, much more famous, yeah.
Because, I mean, that one I know won Palme d'Or, and that has Death Stranding's Léa Seydoux in it.
Yes.
At some point, we'll get to that one, and that... I had not watched any of his movies before, but it makes me very excited for when we do eventually get to that one.
Hell yeah. Was there anything you wanted to add before we retreat back into the ether that is the internet or our lives?
Well, I mean, one of the central things I think we want to do with this podcast is, since we're choosing these movies randomly, we want to give ourselves the challenge of tying them together at the end of it, just to help us be better film analysts, but also look between the lines and see if there's any through line we can generate for the things that we're watching. For me, there was one big thing that stuck out when I was thinking about these as a triple feature, and that was men with persistent coughs. In every single one, no, it was like a kind of central theme of agency. All three of these movies have a central theme of agency. In Make Way for Tomorrow, it's Bark and Lucy wanting to stay independent and being able to support themselves. In 1984, Winston just wants to have independent thought without being judged or tortured. And in this one, Slimane wants to support his family without relying on the handouts that he keeps getting. Like, he wants to be able to provide. He's just such a passive individual that it's hard for him to do so.
And my immediate word that came to mind was expectations. And it's maybe also like the roles we all kind of find ourselves in life. And I often find myself kind of fighting with where I think I should be, and I saw myself so much in, I don't know, all three of the, I guess, male protagonists of this film of these films, where there was sort of this reluctance to get assistance or to reach out to others. Even despite myself, it's so hard, I think, accepting it, because you want to kind of live up to that masculine or even just self-reliant motif. And I think that applies to Bark, where he can't help but keep trying to find that role. He's still looking for a job almost up until the last part of that movie. Like, Slimane is like, he can't help himself a little bit. It's like he clearly is a provider. I mean, he clearly ties this entire family together, but he can't help but separate himself from his family. But with Julia and Winston, just the fact that Winston kind of is only seeing himself in the equation, he thinks he's the one getting her into the situation, but like literally instigates the relationship. And just that masculine wantingness to be like, no, I'll go on my own. I mean, it's kind of what Slimane finds himself doing in the end. He doesn't ask for help. He doesn't try to call anybody. He could have gone right back upstairs. I mean, like,
could have called the police.
Literally, yeah, no, but it's like, no, I'll figure out a way. I just gotta chase after these kids, and then that's the sound of him falling, because it's like he's old and stuff.
I got
like,
you. Yeah.
Dust.
Old people are hollow like birds.
I didn't say that. Science said that.
I think with that, it's also in every one of these movies, there is like a very strong female secondary protagonist that is the one who kind of either enables or allows change to happen. Lucy is the one who, I guess, makes kind of the final decision to
Yeah, producers change, yeah.
Yeah, she accepts the nursing home in order to sacrifice her happiness for her children. I guess she didn't necessarily have the authority to stop him from doing this, but she lets Bark go to California again so that she can kind of let him keep living, keep thinking he will find a job. In 1984, Julia is literally the one who radicalizes Winston. And
yes.
I mean, Rhyme is the one who really takes the reins in this movie in Secret of the Grain and brings about the restaurant and then saves it at the end of the day. For all my monomyth fans, each one is man versus society.
No,
all my Joseph Campbell homies.
We're literally like anti Joseph Campbell podcast.
We are.
If you bring up the circle, I'm dropping off. Man with a million masks, more like racist with one mask.
So yeah, and Make Way for Tomorrow, the man versus society.
Okay, I'm out.
No. Oh, Jesus Christ.
No, it was me just...
Yeah,
that was a comedy bit.
It was a comedy bit, yeah. Comedy bit is to peek the mic and make Jacob listen to that again when he edits. But Nick, now that we've talked at length about some movies, it's time for our favorite segment, because we don't have to analyze shit, Hyperfixation of the Week. It's a segment where we give ourselves just a few minutes each to talk about whatever else in the world we're interested in, because Criterion doesn't exist in a vacuum and neither do we, so we want to be sure we're also experiencing movies, music, books, art, comics, games, culture in all its forms outside of something a curated group of talented film people in Manhattan tell us to do. So Nick, I am going to put 3 minutes on a timer, and I want you... I want you to tell me about your hyperfixation of the week.
My hyperfixation is I've been reading through this book called Lawrence in Arabia. It's a great introduction to both this figure of T.E. Lawrence, as well as like this very particular point in time in the Middle East in the early 1900s during World War I. And I think I've been obsessed with it a little bit because I've always been fascinated by this particular, space and time, but also it really is like this showcasing, like, I don't know, so many parallels to today. It's all about just these big European imperial powers coming to town and just swinging their dick around thinking they know what is up and just completely fucking everyone over. I mean, that's effectively it. I think best way to say it is they offered Jerusalem to both the Syrian leaders, to the Zionists, to the French, and oftentimes they would say, we don't know who we gave it to. Those are often what journal entries were, which is very cool. And I'm so glad that's how our modern world is. That's my fascination of the week.
Damn, you only took 1 minute, 5 seconds. That's sick.
Oh, dude. Oh, shit. Well, that's because I have time blindness. So I just, I gotta go quick.
Have you watched the Lawrence of Arabia movie yet? Or are you kind of waiting to see if you finish?
I've been obsessed with him since I was a kid.
Okay.
I will see. It's mostly because it's very long, and I don't have to. And we're already in this. We're in this mode now where I'm like, we're watching like 6 hours worth of films every week. But I really enjoyed that film when I was younger. I'd be interested because I've not seen it since I was like 18 when I first got into him and his books. But I'm definitely excited to watch it because I also just, that's a fantastic performance and just beautiful shots. That shot, man. If you're a film bro, you know. So Jacob.
Yeah.
Let me hear what you've been kind of obsessing about this week. Go.
This past week, I was watching... I've only ever seen one James Bond movie, and it was GoldenEye.
Mm-hmm.
I like GoldenEye a lot, but I realized I wanted to see the Daniel Craig James Bond movies because, I think that like they're the most modern ones, so I was hoping that they would be the easiest ones to get into without having to kind of, suspend your disbelief and be like, oh, it was a different time. That's why that woman's name is Pussy Galore. But at the same time, I like Daniel Craig as an actor. I feel like other than Benoit Blanc, James Bond is his most impactful role. I haven't seen Girl with the Dragon Tattoo yet. Don't at me. I was excited to watch them, and I made it through all 5, and I thought 2 of them were really, really good. Skyfall, I think, was fucking incredible. It was so well done. Roger Deakins, who also did film 1984 that we watched for this, is just no one can match him when it comes to composing a shot. And I think the way it played with color compared to at least Casino Royale and Quantum of Solace was just so interesting and fun. And it was maybe it's because I'm an American and I like me some Mission Impossibles, and I've reluctantly watched the Fast and the Furious movies. It was the one that felt the most like an American spy movie, which I think is what I wanted them to be. Same with No Time to Die, which was the other one that I liked. I like just a great send-off for James Bond. Spoiler alert, which... Fuck it.
What?
Yeah, I know. The movie with Die in the title. I really like that
so many of them have Die in the title.
I know. I really like that it gave him a conclusive ending without giving it the little like, oh, he'll be back. which I know James Bond will be back, but not Daniel Craig.
Yeah.
And I think I'm probably running low on time, so I'll just say I didn't like Casino Royale very much. It was confusing as shit, and I thought it was dumb that he just, his way of playing cards good was that he was dealt a straight flush. But I did like that Mads Mikkelsen smacked him in the balls a couple times, because that was funny.
You have 56 seconds if you have anything else you'd like to add.
Spectre was also there.
And there we have it.
So, Nick, before we find out what we're going to be watching for the next episode, I want to ask you a question. If you could add one movie to the Criterion Collection, what would it be and why?
I would say Dig. This is a rock documentary. I believe it's from 2004, maybe 2002. It is, I think, one of the best documentaries I've ever seen by one of my favorite directors, Andi Tamnoor. I'm not saying her last name correctly, but you will look it up when you say Dig with a exclamation point. But it basically follows two bands who start off as like these alt kind of hippie-ish bands. And one becomes very like popular, but very corporate. And the other one becomes like, they stick to the way they're at, but it's a little bit too artsy and it just doesn't quite work out. Their stories are so well integrated. And I know that she shot it over, I think like 7 years or something, having never made a film before. And I think it won like best documentary at Sundance the year that it was released. If it's not already in the Criterion Collection, I would want it to be one of the first.
Alrighty.
How about what Criterion film or what film would you like to add to the Criterion Collection?
Well, it's interesting that you did it in that voice, because I think mine, I was thinking about this a lot because I knew I was going to ask you this question. I think The Green Knight, which is a 2021 movie directed by David Lowery, I think it's just an absolutely incredible, vibey movie that has just this ethereal sense of visuals to it. It's so gorgeous, and it's not one of those movies where, like, obviously it's an Arthurian retelling, but it's also just, it doesn't really wrap everything up nicely at the end. The legend doesn't really either. But I don't know. More people should watch The Green Knight. I think it's incredible. I would absolutely love to have a 4K of it packed with special features. If there's an A24 one of that exists, then it will be showing up in my Amazon cart at some point, probably. I highly recommend it if someone hasn't seen it, because it fucking rules.
I think that's a great addition. I will only really see that because I loved the soundtrack randomly. That was like on my list, and I've not seen the film though.
Watch Dig. So that leaves only one thing to do, and Nick, that is choose our movies for next week. I know. So I'll run our little randomizer, and we'll see what it is that we're doing.
Let's do it.
Moment of truth. Let's see.
It's my operatic, send up. That'll be what we'll play for the rest of time. What are we looking at?
We are looking at, oh boy, Nick, we have 4 movies for next week, but 2 of them are kind of short.
Okay. Hey, I'm okay with that.
We have I Married a Witch from 1942, Double Indemnity from 1944, The Naked Prey from 1965, and The French Dispatch of the Liberty, Kansas Evening Sun from 2021.
I've not seen that Wes Anderson one, so I'm excited. And also just 40s films, there's no parallels to the 40s today. Nothing
Watch me mention this in the next episode, but I can't hear Double Indemnity without thinking of the 30 Rock bit from Tracy Morgan, where he hits Will Arnett's character with his car, and Will Arnett sends up, he's like, I'm going to sue you, and he goes, you can't sue me, I'm already being sued. Double Indemnity, which is not a real thing. And I will save my thoughts I have about one of those movies in particular.
Tracy Morgan?
No, not Tracy. I love Tracy Morgan.
I'm assuming
about one of the movies we're going to watch.
Film.
I have
fantastic
opinions.
Well, everyone, that's going to do it for us here on Criterion Castaways as we set sail for our next adventure. We want to thank you for listening and encourage you to share the podcast if you liked it. Tell us how we can improve, which don't worry, we already know we don't need to. And follow us on Instagram, Threads, YouTube, and all major podcast platforms at Criterion Castaways. I've been Nick Fiore.
And I've been Jacob Katz. Thanks again, everybody, and we'll see you next time. I see what I did there. See, like, because...
Damn it, you've ruined it. No, I'm kidding. No, it's good. It's good. So good, Nick. It's fine.